I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:30. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:52. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the matters from the floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, invocation and pledge of allegiance. Ms. Winkley.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the opportunity to come together as a community. We ask that you continue to watch over all of our students, as each one is precious in your eyes. We ask that you continue to guide the leaders of this district as they navigate through these unprecedented times and strive to educate our children as well as keep them safe. We ask that you continue to bless our beloved teachers and staff with knowledge and empathy and health, as they are the true face and arms of our beloved district. We ask that you hold our NEISD community, Heavenly Father. Help us to see and to hear each other with grace, respect, and love. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Item 6, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. No action. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 term contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 7, presentations. A, bilingual ESL program evaluation. Mr. Jarrett.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Alicia Calderon to come forward for this agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So every year, districts are required to conduct an annual evaluation of their bilingual ESL program in accordance to the Texas Education Code 29.053. So that's what I'm here for, to go ahead and do the presentation. And it should be starting. There you go. I don't know if you remember, but we did this presentation last year. Mm-hmm. It was slightly different. At this time of year, we do not have the TAPA report yet. So this year, we don't have any TAPA report. It's not going to come out. We're not going to have that accountability system. So what I've done is just compiled past TAPA reports to take a look at the program and what have we, been doing. We do have numbers, though, in terms of enrollment, and that's what you can see here. This year, in 1920, this is last year's PIMS snapshot in October. We were at 9,219 English learners in the district, and which is about 14.29% of our enrollment. We don't have the numbers. Those numbers do not come in fully, completely until the end of this month, and so we don't have the numbers for that current year. And this has to be presented to you before November. So that's why we're a little behind every time we present these numbers. And here you can see just a breakdown of the students that we service under the program. So we have our students that are English learners. If you see the red part, it's English learners in the dual language program. So these are students that come into our schools without proficiency in English, basically. Then we have the non-ELs, or the English proficient students, the light blue part, in dual language programs. And these are students who are English proficient and their parents choose to put them in the dual language program. Then the light green area, it says M1 to 4. Those are monitor students, students that have been reclassified according to the criteria that the state gives us. And but we have to monitor them for 4 years to make sure that they are successful in our mainstream classrooms. Then we have the bright green, which are the ESL, and that's the students who are in English as a second language program. It differs from our dual language program that in ESL, the instruction is 100% in English. In our dual language, our instruction is divided according to the grade level in Spanish and in English. So that's the difference between those two programs. And then in the gray area, we have our denials, and those are parents who refuse to put their kids in either ESL or in dual language programs. Fortunately, we have a very small number of denials in the district. And that's very good, actually, because they do better in programs than not being serviced. So our goals as a department is to perform above the state and the region in all subject areas, and then also to close the achievement gap between English learners and general education students in Northeast Independent School District. So for TELPAS 2019 and 2020, just to give you a little idea of how the test goes, the districts are given about a 6-week window to complete the testing. And it closes in March, right? And it closes after spring break. Well, the district closed in March due to COVID-19. So the test, I'll explain in a little bit, has to be done. It's 4 parts of the test. And so only 71% of our English learners were able to complete all 4 domains of TELPAS testing, receiving a composite score. So you have to finish all 4 domains, all 4 testings to be able to receive a composite score. And I'll tell you in a minute why this is important. At the state level, only 44% of the students received a composite score. Okay, so in that case, we actually did better than the state in terms of getting our students to complete the assessment. So TELPAS is an English proficiency test that's administered to all English learners. And it is a state requirement, and it's part of Domain 3 in the accountability system, because way back with No Child Left Behind, it started as a federal requirement. It has to continue in ESSA. So what do we have to do? Basically, we need to show growth in English proficiency for our students at 1 level every year. And so that's why I was telling you that the composite score is very important, because a composite score is what shows growth or not. So you go from a beginner to intermediate, intermediate to advanced, and advanced to advanced high. And you have to have the 4 language domains assessed: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So that's why it's important that we complete all 4 domains. So if they did not complete 4 domains, so say, for example, a child completed only the reading, we do have those scores, but we just don't have a composite score for that kid. So, and the writing is scored by calibrated raters. So the listening, speaking, and reading are tests online. For the first comparison is TELPAS is divided in K through 2 and then 3 through 12. The state divides it that way. So we stayed pretty much the same, but again, we stayed at 50% of students who actually made at least 1 year of progress or one level of progress in their composite score. However, you have to remember that only 71% of our kids tested. It's not 100% of our kids. And the state scored the same as us. But in the state, it was only 44%. In the next one, the 3 through 12, we stayed at a 39%, and the state did a little bit better than us. We really are comparing apples to oranges, if you ask me, but those are the numbers that I have, and that's what we have available. When we look at all students K through 2, percentage of English learners who made yearly progress in different programs, we separate the dual language program and the ESL program. So we are at a 51%, just like the state is in the dual language program, but the state is all bilingual models. So we only have a dual language model in bilingual. Bilingual education, there's 4 different models. But the percentage for the state includes all the different models that are being implemented by the different districts. And in ESL, we're a little bit better than the state. And for 312, pretty much the same in dual language or bilingual programs, and then in ESL as well. So now let's take a look at the STAR, the TAPAR reports in dual language. So the first thing we're going to look at is English learners in dual language programs. I have in here, I have NEISD data on white. I have the region data in yellow, and the state data in orange. Now, I've done 3 years, 2017, so the spring 2017, spring 2018, and spring 2019. 2020, we didn't have STAR, so we cannot put it up there. But we have been making progress consistently. And when we started actually in 2013 with STAR testing, I started tracking, the STAR, the TAPAR report, and started tracking our results. And we've gone up, tremendously. In all grades, all subjects, we started at a 55%. I didn't put it on there because, it would be too much data to put on there. But we started in this area at 55%. This is reading for all grades. And again, this is only in dual language programs. And that was in 2013 was at a 62%. Our math, which we are below the state by 2 points, in 2013, we were at a 54%, compared to the state, which was at a 66%. So it was a 12-point difference from the state to what we were doing. And now we're 2 points away. We have looked into a little bit of, the grades and what grade level. We think it's 4th grade. We're working on collaboratively with the math department to work with that grade level and provide support for them. The writing is another one where we have really, really come a long ways. Again, when we started in 2013, we were at 51%, and now we are at 65% and above the state. And in science, we started at a 44%, and we are at a 69% and above the state and the region. Our ESL results are not as good as our dual language, but again, they are consistently above the state. So this is for all subjects. We are at a 62%. Reading at a 54% compared to the state, again above the state. And then math, we are at a 50, wait a minute, I don't know. 74, I'm sorry, 74% in math. And we started that one, I was reading here, we started that one at 59%. So we've gone up in math and ESL considerably. And then writing at 50%, that's the one that really needs a lot of work. I think even more than reading, the writing piece for fourth graders and seventh graders, and our English ELC as well. So what are our next steps? Oh, and the science, I'm sorry, we're at 70%. And our next steps is to continue to collaborate with all content area teams to provide professional development for bilingual and ESL teachers. And the bilingual ESL department specialists will continue to provide coaching for teachers. Although you know that it's a little bit different this year, but we're getting there, and we're doing everything that we can to provide as much support virtually right now to our teachers. But we're slowly getting to go to campuses and with approval of principals to support our teachers more in the classrooms and their PLCs. The bilingual ESL department continues to work with campus administration and central office leadership to build capacity within the district to run effective English learners programs. And our department will participate in professional learning communities in schools to provide support to classroom teachers. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Winkley?
Just a couple. One, out of curiosity, I noticed with the, I think it was the ESL, there was a dip in 2018 in 2 of the 4 subjects. Do you know what that's attributed to? I was just curious on that.
Let me go back. I think it was,
Not in math and writing, so the other 2,
in the reading,
reading, and then
Yeah.
the one before that.
there was a dip.
And
Yeah,
yes.
that one is all
All
subjects.
subjects. I mean, yes,
Right.
that one.
So that one would affect, all of the different categories. So you'll have the reading, the writing, the science, everything included in there. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the year that the writing took a dip, in 4th grade especially. And I think 7th grade did much better than that. I would have to go back and check. But I'm pretty sure that was the year that writing as a whole state went down, and we went down also, like as a district.
Okay, that, I was
But we
just
were-
curious
yeah.
on that one. The other question I have, so the 71% completed all 4 parts. The remainder of those students, were you able to kind of use the components that they were able to complete to kind of do a raw comparison to see if there was any improvement, or is the data not, are you not able to do that with the data?
Yeah, we do. Each campus would actually look at their own data for their students. And the problem is that since there's 4 parts to the test, it was actually 3 parts to the test, because the listening and speaking is together, and then the reading, and then the writing. And a lot of the times teachers use the different components to compare. So an English teacher, for example, in 7th grade, will really use the writing component to actually look at that and see how the kids are doing. But at the locals, speaking campuses, each campus will definitely look at those. The teachers will look at that and see if they completed, especially the reading, to look at how much or how well they did. To me, and this is my personal opinion, the reading is a great indicator on how kids will do on STAR. The reading piece, not so much the other 2, but the reading piece is a great indicator on how the kids will do.
Okay, and I forgot, I have one more question, and you've told us this, we went over the parents that deny assistance, and I'm with you. That worries me as well. What does our number this year look like compared to the number last year?
We've been steady on the denials. We do everything that we can. We talk to the campuses talk to the parents first.
Okay.
That's the first level, right? If the teachers or the person, the POC, the point of contact, the bilingual coaches, if they cannot convince the parent, then they go to the principal. And if the principal can't convince the parents, then they come to me. And, and we have convinced a lot of parents to put their kids in a bilingual program. Unfortunately, some of them do not want to go to another campus.
Okay.
And so we cluster students, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult, for all students to accept to be in the programs. Now, ESL, it is offered everywhere.
Right.
But, and there's a lot of parents, to be honest, that don't want the stigma either, of being in an ESL program, to be honest. I mean, we've come across those cases. But again, it's a very low percentage.
Are they able to change their mind mid-year?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation. Great job.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No. Thank you very much. That
Thank
was a
you.
great presentation.
Thank you.
Item B, bond refunding results. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. We bring to you tonight a presentation on our refunding. Last week, we did our refunding, and Hilltop Securities is our financial advisor, and RBC Capital was one of our senior managers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to give you some details.
Thanks.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Just going to give you a brief summary of the results of that bond transaction, refunding transaction that we did last week. This is our first refunding transaction of a large chunk of bonds that we've done in 5 years, and it was a very big transaction. We refunded over $251 million worth of bonds. And not all of these, the 2012s included some bonds that were refunding bonds themselves, as were the 2014A and 2014B. So bonds that we had sold 8 and 6 years ago and thought, wow, this was a great deal. I mean, the market has changed that much more that we were even able to refinance our refinancing. These were taxable bonds, meaning that the interest on these bonds is taxable to the bond holder. This is the first time that Northeast has ever sold taxable bonds. It was necessary because in 2017, with the change to the tax law, they also threw in a provision that did not allow governmental entities to do tax-exempt advance refunding bonds. Advance refunding means that the bonds that you are refunding come due more than 1 year from the transaction date. So that's an advance refunding. And so the only thing that was left was to do taxable. Well, taxable rates, the rate that we pay in interest is going to be higher because the investor needs to be able to cover the taxes that they're going to pay on the interest. But in recent months, the yields on taxable bonds have dropped so much that they're pretty much just comparable to what tax-exempt rates are. So it made this refunding really attractive. As Dan said, here was the team that put this sale together. The senior manager, RBC Capital Markets, I've got Dusty Traylor, Managing Director of RBC here, to say a brief word and answer any questions that I might not be able to answer. So the morning of the sale, October 5th, it got us a little worried. The markets kind of changed not in our favor, as it was the day that the president announced he was leaving Walter Reed to go back to the White House, and that it was known that Steve Mnuchin and Speaker Pelosi were getting back to doing stimulus talks. So equity market grew, treasury markets shrank, and taxable bonds are tied directly to treasury yields. So those yields were climbing, and so that worried us. Luckily, those fears did not come to fruition. We actually had $861 million in orders for $251 million worth of bonds, so 3.2 times the bonds available. So we were actually able to decrease the yields on those bonds on practically all of the years of maturities from the scale that went out initially to the potential investors. The district kicked in $6.1 million to this transaction. Sounds like a lot of money, but $5.5 million was basically we're putting into the escrow the February 1, 2021 interest payment. We would have made that payment anyway. So we're just putting it in escrow instead of holding on to it and doing it on February 1. And then we did throw in $600,000 to help on some of the closing costs. So the number that you've been waiting for, This refunding transaction resulted in a savings to district and its taxpayers of $44.5 million, even more than the amount that we were discussing and hoping for when you approved the bond order last month. So that's roughly a $2 million per year savings for the next 22 years. There's an amount called, when you average out the interest over all bonds over all years, what is the true interest cost? The true interest cost as a percentage is 1.84%. Some of the bonds that we were refunding 6 and 8 years ago, we were ecstatic to get true interest costs of like 2.7%, 3.2%. Now we're down to a true interest cost of 1.84%. And with that, if you have any questions, or I will turn it over to a brief word from Mr. Traylor.
Well, good evening. Again, my name is Dusty Traylor, Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets here in San Antonio. And I would just echo the comments of Brian, but one of the things that I would add to Brian's comments is, one, the interest rate environment is very, very good. We are in a very, very low interest rate environment, even with some of the hiccups that may have taken place over the past 10 days. But one of the things that led to the dramatic success of this financing is the strength of Northeast ISD. That's reflected in your bond ratings, and that's a reflection of the administration, the finance team that you have here, as well as the decisions that this board makes. So that is one of the things that helps to drive investor demand for your bonds. And that was a key component to the success of this transaction. So we were delighted to serve as your senior manager and delighted to be able to deliver a transaction that provided savings to the taxpayers of Northeast ISD of slightly over $2 million per year.
Yeah, yay.
So congratulations. Yes.
That's a good thing.
And thank you.
Thank you. Did you?
Mr. Traylor took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say it was all the board, but no, I'm teasing. But again, thank you to you and your team. It looks like everybody did their job and showed up to work. It's fantastic results.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for getting us a little more than what we thought. I know you were nervous back there.
I was.
As were we.
But that's awesome. So, and thank you for bringing us that report. We appreciate the update. Thank you so much for your participation in all of this. All right, did anybody else have any questions or comments? Item C, preview of the 87th Texas Legislature. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you.
I call on Deb Caldwell, our Director of Government Relations and Grant Development.
Thank you very much, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight I have the pleasure of bringing you a preview of the 87th Texas Legislature. The preview, I hope, is going to allow you to think about a legislative agenda heading into the 2021 session. And why is that important? The legislative agenda that you adopt as a board really helps guide staff. So when we are having those conversations with elected officials, as bills are coming up, it guides us on what you want to support as a board. It allows us also to I'm sorry, I'm going to take this off. Can I
Yes,
do this?
please.
Okay, sorry. It also allows us to collaborate with other school districts and associations who might have similar priorities so we can come together as a larger group. So heading into 2021, I'm going to talk with you about some things for you to consider and think about when you're formulating a legislative agenda. The budget shortfall that we're facing, the interim charges of the two chambers, the November election coming up, the speaker's race, the redistricting process, and the COVID-19 procedures at the Capitol, and how all of those impact what you might want to think about for your legislative agenda. So starting with the state budget shortfall, in July, the comptroller came up with a preliminary revenue estimate heading into this session. Now, this is just preliminary. This is a best guess. But what he is saying that the state may face a shortfall of $4.6 billion for the biennium we're in right now. That means that when the session starts in 21, that's a hole that has to get plugged with a budget resolution. That's on top of the budget for the next biennium. Again, this is the best guess. There's a lot of assumptions, but it could have been a lot higher than 4.6. The estimate could have been closer to 11.6. They used federal CARES Act dollars to fill some of that. Because there aren't as many students attending school in Texas, that doesn't cost as much. We've also had property values grow. That's additional revenue that releases the state from their obligation. All those things combined come up with that $4.6 billion. And again, there's lots of assumptions that the comptroller made in July when he released this number. One of those assumptions was that our economy would continue to stay open, that there would be no other closures for the duration of the year. We just, in school finance, recovered from the cuts in 2011. If you look at this chart, which was provided by Raise Your Hand Texas, this is revenue per student based with inflation. So if you consider inflationary dollars across the spectrum, we really have been flat for the last several years, from 14-15 until most recently. It wasn't until the passage of House Bill 3 that we finally broke that flat record after that 2011 cuts really devastated public education. So there's lots of conversation about how to sustain the good work of House Bill 3. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. So interim charges are assigned by the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor to each chamber. And this is the work that the chambers are supposed to do during the off time when one session ends and another one begins. So today I'm sharing with you the interim charges for the House Public Education Committee as well as the Senate Education Committee. Now, there certainly are other committees that have education items that come up and go across their desk. But for the sake of time tonight, I'm just going to focus on the two big committees that we deal with the most related to education. So given the situation with COVID-19, the House Public Education Committee has developed a process to make a formal request for information. This is in lieu of a public hearing. So rather than gathering people in person to give testimony, the House has decided to put those information requests out. The House recently put out requests for items 1 and 2 of the interim charges, and Northeast ISD responded to those. Those are in your packet. So that's what's included there is our response to 1A, 1B, and 2, the district staff's response to those interim charges through that formal request for information. Senate Education interim charges. The Senate is actually having a hearing Wednesday of this week. They are doing invited testimony only, and those folks testifying are going to be via Zoom. They're going to be covering at that meeting the retaining highly effective teachers, teacher professional development. So they're doing a little bit different process than the House Public Education Committee. So when you look at both of those interim charges and you think about what people are saying in the media, you start to see some trends. These are what I'm calling anticipated big topics. This is what I think legislators are going to be focused on when they return in January. That's the sustainability of House Bill 3, accountability in a time of learning loss with COVID, and digital connectivity, this idea that all of our students need to have the opportunity to engage in virtual learning. So the House Bill 3 conversation. This was an opinion editorial that was written by Dan Huberty. He is the chairman of the House Public Education Committee, and it was picked up by lots of newspapers. This was done in May, and he basically then was saying, don't worry. House Bill 3 passed with unanimous support. Don't worry, there's a commitment from legislators to ensure it is sustainable. That's what you're hearing from elected officials. You're hearing a lot about their commitment, how it was a bipartisan, unanimous commitment to support House Bill 3, and that they are going to continue that commitment. Accountability conversations. On the left, the TEA slide, these are 4 options that Commissioner Mike Morath provided to the ATAC and APAC committees. That's the Accountability Technical Advisory Committee and the Accountability Policy Advisory Committee. He made these over the summer. These are 4 possible options that we could, as a state, approach accountability during this time. Option 4 is the one that you will see us supporting in the request for information that you have in your packet. The idea of let's reset, let's get baseline data. Nobody knows the learning loss that children across the nation are truly going to face long term. We can guess, but we don't know. So why give them or measure them against standards that were developed before a pandemic? And how do you even come up with standards to measure them against during a pandemic when we don't truly know their learning loss? We could use this time to recalibrate, to collect data. We're not against the STAR test. Let's get the data. Let's find out where our kids are. But don't punish the child through grade promotion, and don't hold districts accountable through the accountability system that exists today. Let's rethink that. And this idea has support from both parties. State legislators throughout the summer and across Texas, R's and D's, supported this idea of either suspending STAR or giving STAR and suspending accountability, or both. There's a lot of conversation across the state about that. But the commissioner definitely seems to have some support of measurement. He spoke to the Dallas Regional Chamber recently, and he made some comments about the importance of accountability and his expectation that it will be around in some form this year. They'll be meeting, ATAC and APAC will be meeting at the end of October, so we'll have a little bit more information about TEA's vision, I think, then. The digital learning conversation. Dr. Micah served on the Operation Connectivity Task Force. The governor put that task force together to talk about and address the digital connectivity of students across the state. Ultimately, they used CARES Act funding, TEA did, to purchase technology to be sent to districts, that's devices and Wi-Fi, but then they also provided reimbursement processes for school districts as well who purchased their own. Operation Connectivity has support, again, from both chambers. So I think there definitely will be a conversation about digital connectivity across the state, especially in those rural areas where it is hard to get a signal. The November election is going to take an impact as well. All the House members, as a reminder, are up every 2 years. We have 16 senators who are up in November. This is information from the Texas Tribune about who is potentially trying to flip seats. We don't know what will happen. We'll know, hopefully, soon after November 3rd. But we do know that we'll have at least one new member representing Northeast ISD. Roland Gutierrez, who has a very small percentage of Northeast, is running for Texas Senate, and he vacated his House seat, so we know we'll at least have one new member. The speaker's race, the speaker sets the tone for the House, sets the tone for policy, how bills move, so that's important to us too. Do we have an education advocate as a speaker will be important to us, but we don't know who that's going to be yet. They will decide, they always decide when the session begins, but nobody has filed yet, which is unlike 2 years ago. Redistricting, the reason I bring up redistricting, because it's a major task they have to accomplish in 2021. If they don't get things done, there's some ramifications related to that, but it's going to take a lot of their energy and their focus. So what we think is going to happen, what we're predicting is going to happen, is there probably will be fewer bills that ultimately pass. There'll be significant bills, there'll be stuff that has to get taken care of, but they're just not going to have the energy and ability to get a lot of things done. The other thing that people are starting to predict is a special session. Just real quick to kind of go through redistricting, this data from the census hopefully will be delivered April 1 at least, to the states. They will then have until the end of the session, May 31st, to get the state, Senate, and House districts drawn. The legislature, if they don't do those, then a board, the Legislative Redistricting Board, takes that away from them and says, you couldn't get it done. Us 5 members, which includes like the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker and the Comptroller, will get it done for you. Now, they can go to a special session for congressional districts and SBOE districts. So if they don't finish the work by sine die on those 2 components, the governor can call a special session, which has happened in the past. And then the March 2022 elections would be the first in Texas to use those new redistricting maps. What the heck are we going to do at the Capitol? Are we going to have public hearings? Are we going to be able to make office visits? Are we going to go to TASB Legislative Conference? Who knows? On the left is a picture of plexiglass that was installed between the desks in the House that was taken by Representative Lyle Larson. That was just an experiment. From my understanding, that's been removed. They found that that wasn't an effective way to do business and protect members. So my understanding is now they are actually trying to figure out a way how to put 150 desks on the floor of the House, which is going to be challenging. How many of y'all have been in a crowded elevator at the Capitol? I know Mrs. Williams has. Look at that picture. 4 people in the elevator, all facing the wall. That's very difficult and very different than our normal practice when we're at the Capitol.
Facing the wall.
So who knows? And how will that affect our work? So as a reminder about the legislative timeline, filing begins in November. The comptroller will have his biennial estimate to the legislature in January. Usually it's the day before the session starts, so I put January 11th there. That will really shape what they know that they have to spend, what they have to plug from this biennium. Session starts January 12th, and the regular session ends May 31st. So your next steps as a board. You can discuss the possible topics for the legislative agenda. I included those big 3 again. In the past, you also had items related to local control, and of course you can add other items as well. And then we would bring back that agenda for your adoption, possibly in November, if y'all are ready at that time. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Okay, I think I forgot to tell y'all, we reshuffled the TASB committees, and I was very honored to ask to go back to the legislative committee. So, Deb, I have a feeling we'll be working together a lot.
Absolutely, and Dr. Micah is on the TASA legislative committee, so.
I was going to say, between this district and, as luck would have it, the chair for legislative is also a trustee from Region 20. So Region 20 at the state level, so Region 20 will have some great representation from a legislative standpoint. The vice chair is Dallas. So, Congratulations. Thank you. It's a job that I've really enjoyed in the past. I've chaired it twice and been on it many years, and I tried to step aside to let other people have a turn, but they asked me to come back this year. But as you can imagine, we've already started a lot of discussions too, and a lot of these issues that you brought up, we've been discussing. We have no answers, but a lot of discussion, particularly visits and things like that. We're pretty certain we're not going to be allowed in the Capitol. That's just the way things are kind of looking, but we hope that changes. Have you, I think the accountability issue, and I know you've had some calls with Mr. Morath also, but on our call with him last week, the accountability issue was brought up by trustees all over the state, and it is of great concern. Just like you, no one is afraid of accountability, but the repercussions and the ramifications of unfair accountability is of great concern. And there were multiple questions to him, not any specific answers, but I think that that's going to be a top issue for a lot of people. The other issue that came up from a lot of people too was social emotional issues and support for those. So I know we've kind of led the way on that more than any other districts are always so impressed with some of the things we're doing, the adultwellness.com and all that stuff. But I have a feeling it may come up more, particularly because of COVID. The other issue that's been, we don't know where it's going to go from, if the legislature will get involved in it too, is the framework for school boards that the SBOE brought forth a couple of months ago. Only because the concern for it is, the intent is even more regulations on school boards, which are now considered the most heavily regulated entity, government entity in the state of Texas. We are the most micromanaged. And SBOE is talking about more. And Deb, I did not know if you had been aware of that framework. My concern with it is we can meet whatever regulations they put on us. I have no doubt about that. We're a high-performing board. But there were some expectations that to me came across as unfunded mandates or as a duplication of things that we already do as a district. And so my concern there was the financial impact that this could have on us, and if the legislature would expect that too. About the redistricting, would our single-member districts be under the same a similar guideline? I mean, I know ours is based on the census too, when we have, ours goes to Washington, D.C. I know that's not our, we don't draw them. Washington, D.C. has to okay them. I know that.
That
but
actually is no longer the case. So Texas used to have a requirement for approval
Right.
at the federal level.
I remember that 10 years ago, the last time. Yeah.
Correct.
Because it kinda
But
got
we
messed
have,
up.
as a state, been released of that obligation at this
Really?
time. So
Interesting.
the redistricting process, just real quickly, we will use census data. We, of course, have a fabulous research department, a fabulous attorney who will guide that process. And at some point, you'll be asked to think about the process and how you want to go about it. But the good news is we don't have to really start getting into that too much until next year.
That was my question, because I saw your timeline for the state.
But the good
And-
news is that so the state's timeline will be marching along with them. So as this data comes in from the state in April, that's when we will get it too. And as they're working on their redistricting, we will be, as a district, working on it as well.
Great. That's really good to hear about the release from DOJ. I'm
Yes.
sure that takes a huge load off and financial burden too,
And
off
that,
of a
you
lot
know,
of issues.
That can always come back. The reason
Sure.
why Texas was under
Right.
DOJ was because of some other issues in the past, but
Right.
over the years, that's been removed as a requirement.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we as a district would make sure that those issues did not reoccur too. I mean, I think we're all very aware and sensitive to those.
Absolutely, but again, it was
Yeah.
a state requirement
Right,
for
right,
all
right.
elected,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it.
Terry?
Well, first of all, thanks for everything that you do, Deb.
Thank you.
You know, we've been on many of those DC trips and
Austin
and
trips.
Austin
Yes,
trips
ma'am.
as well. So I was glad to hear that, although I don't know if they know how much, but there's some estimated revenue growth by online sales tax.
Yes.
At least. You know, I think I contributed to that as well. I've been
Yes.
buying more stuff online than ever before. So I'm also glad to hear, I mean, this was going to be one of my questions, and I think you already addressed it about operation connectivity, because, you know, as you mentioned, you know, we don't cover the rural areas,
Right.
but there's a lot of students and districts in those rural areas. However, we do have students that need connectivity. You know,
Yep.
they need assistance with Wi-Fi or internet or, you know, just technology. I think we've done a great job trying to provide them with the instrument, you know, that they need. But, you know, sometimes their parents might need assistance actually, you know, having internet or getting internet.
And
So-
Mrs. Williams, I think one of the things that you'll see in the packet on that digital connectivity item is that we're encouraging the state to define internet. You know, Tom Johnson really led me through this process of, you can't just, and Dr. Micah, you can't just check the box that you have internet. Your phone by itself is not enough to run a Zoom meeting, let alone if you have a couple members of your household all trying to run it. We really are trying to encourage the state to set a standard for a high-speed, reliable broadband connectivity. That's very different than just the word internet. And we have to train our people to know, our families, our communities, to know that it's not just a box like, yeah, I have internet, I have a phone, I get cell service. No, it's so much deeper than that when you're trying to run Zoom classrooms. So thank you for pointing that out, and I think it's a conversation that a lot of people around the state are willing to have. You're starting to see that. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything from your time on the task force.
So that was one of the greatest lessons that everybody learned, was every district in the state sent out a survey about internet. And what happened is a lot of people said, oh yeah, I have it, only to find out that it's not reliable and it's certainly not high speed. And so, but look, people get it. I mean, it's about gigabits per second and all of those components, and the average person has no idea what that is, right? And so it really is a large task, and it's not even so much a state problem, it's a national problem. That's where it really needs to be worked out. So my work actually on Operation Connectivity continues. All it was is put on pause, just due to the fact that we were all trying to get schools up and going. But I actually had a meeting probably about 3 weeks ago, and we're starting to get back to this component, but it's going to take legislative action at the federal level to really do something for everyone, because it needs to be looked at as a utility like power or water. That's how reliable, or I mean, that's how necessary it is in today's world.
And it seems like the pandemic has put a pause on everything, because I remember I was in D.C. earlier this year, January, and having meetings about broadband. So, we were ready to, start true efforts, and, everything had to be paused. But thanks for that. Another comment or question, and I don't know if you have a status on this, but I know for several years, state of Texas had a rainy day fund. And when you said there's a projected shortfall of $4.5 billion. So I'm wondering, I guess, two things. How much do we still have a rainy day fund? How much is in there? And is any of that being, used to try to reduce that shortfall fund? Do you know?
That's a wonderful question. The rainy day fund, which is also referred to as the Economic Stabilization Fund, they're estimating would have potentially $8 billion in it. So yes, of course, it would cover that shortfall, but there are spending requirements on the ESF that are established at the beginning of every session. So based on past, they don't typically dip that much into it. They do try to be conservative with how much they take out of the ESF. But yes, it does appear at this time that the money will be there. When I say at this time, because some of that ESF money comes from oil and gas, right?
Right.
If we're driving less, if production is down, that affects that Economic Stabilization Fund piece. So at this time, yeah, and people are talking about it.
Great.
As a way, because for a budget hole like this, where it would be a resolution, that is a one-time expense. They don't like using the Economic Stabilization Fund for anything ongoing that would tie it up year after year. But it certainly could be something to help with the shortfall at this time.
Okay, thank you. And you pretty much answered the question about, redistricting, would it affect us and how and when? And just lastly, I wanted to kind of make a point or throw this out there. So I had an opportunity to participate as a delegate at TASB this year, when there were a lot of resolutions, a lot of changes being proposed, and amendments to the core principles. There was a lot of discussion regarding adding statements that related to eradication of systemic racism. There was a lot of emotional discussion around that. So that that piece actually, got voted in as a amendment to the principles, actually got voted in as intentional eradication of systemic racism. However, there was another piece in there that actually related to supporting legislation that would address anything that could relate to eradication of systemic racism. And folks are like, we can't make the legislators do anything. Well, if enough folks support that, then they start thinking twice about that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there, that it was highly discussed at the TASB Delegate Assembly.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything? So the next step is for us to talk about how we want to prepare the legislative agenda. And you're thinking about possible action in November, right?
Yes.
Bringing something back for us to review and discuss and
Correct.
take action on in November.
So if you give me some general direction tonight, I will work with staff to craft some recommendations for you to consider in November.
Okay. So tell me or remind me, we typically have 4 action items, or do we typically have a certain, I don't remember, and I apologize, I don't remember.
That's okay. So in the last 2019 legislative agenda, there are 3 big topics: school finance, accountability, and local control. Under school finance and accountability, there's usually, 2 to 4
Okay.
bullets, and then local control, there's usually around 2,
Okay.
or 1 to 3, around 2 bullets as well.
Okay. So I printed off the interim charges that Dr. Micah had sent and kind of highlighted some things. It kind of looked like to me some of this really could be the beginnings of language for. I agree.
I was just going to ask if we could kind of mirror what he stated in his letter. That was a wonderful letter, by
Yeah,
the way.
it was great.
Just a wonderful, 3 letters.
3, yeah. So, but it's a lot, so I know it's more than what we would want to put on that, but being you, the awesome person that you are, you could probably craft and develop something that fits within your recommended number.
Yeah, so those interim charges again covered House Bill 3, accountability and assessment, and digital connectivity. So I can draw from those, with digital connectivity possibly being a new topic for y'all to consider. You've never had that on your legislative agenda before, but it's something that you could consider. And then I would ask if you had anything that you would want to put under local control. You've had some items there in the past. So is there anything there, perhaps what you discussed, Mrs. Huey, about the framework, about some process for school boards to govern? I'm just throwing that back since you had mentioned it. But definitely, I'm asking if there would be a local control item you would want to consider in addition to those 3 that are outlined in those requests for information.
In the past, haven't we had kind of a legislative workshop where we all kind of sat down together and worked on some of these? It's been a while.
Yeah, we certainly have done it lots of different ways over the years. Yes,
Yeah.
at times y'all have done it as a working meeting. Sometimes we've just done it here.
Okay.
We've done it multiple ways.
I wouldn't mind doing a working meeting. I think if, we have some, what month is, oh my gosh, it's November.
Between now
It's
and
October.
November,
I just
Yeah,
realized it
that's-
was October 15th, or almost 15th,
I-
sorry.
I don't know that we could get that
Yeah, I don't
in, but we
either.
could
Yeah.
try.
Well, and I also just want to say that in the past, we have brought you stuff in September to start thinking about. But because so much is taking shape, I recommended to Dan Varial that we wait as long as possible to have this discussion with you, because so much was still in flux. Each month we learned something new. So that's my apologies for not giving y'all more time.
No, it's okay. And Dr. Micah just reminded me that we have a special board meeting on October 26th. So we could do it then as a working meeting. I mean, it's already on the calendar. We don't really have anything right now for that meeting, right? Is that correct? Okay, so would we like to do that? Have that be our ledge?
Ledge
kinda-
workshop.
I'm sorry?
A ledge workshop.
Uh-huh. Are you available to do that for us?
Of course I am.
I think with all the
Because
things
I have
that
a very
happened-
supportive husband who will make sure that I am.
I think with all the challenges that have hit us this past year, I think it would be great if we could kind of talk through, I mean, you've kept us so informed
Yes.
and so on top of everything, and I know we're, you know, as I share stories with my friends in other districts, I know that we've been kept so in the loop, and I really appreciate it, but just the chance to sit down and review all of this and where we've come and where we're going,
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll plan on that. Is that okay, Peggy?
Peggy will give an answer of yes.
She's nodding. She's nodding.
Okay, so Deb, thank you. Great presentation, and then we will regroup on October 26th.
Sounds great. Thank you. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. I hadn't thought about that. Okay, next item. My eyes are like not working. Item 8, new business for possible board action, a discussion regarding board meeting operations. One of the things that I wanted us to talk about was, right now, currently, on matters from executive session, for instance, when we have personnel, we just say possible action regarding routine personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments. And then we take action all together. So I'm wondering if you all would like to kind of work on the agenda piece and have the individual personnel items listed. For instance, if we needed to approve a director or assistant director of technology or whatever, if we wanted that to be individually or an assistant principal somewhere, I kind of wanted some feedback from y'all as to how, if you thought that we should try and be more specific on our agenda to talk about items that are coming out of executive session.
This is the position, not the name of the actual.
It's not the name, it's
Okay.
just the position. Now, at the end, like how we normally do, like if we, typically we have, if it's a principal or athletic director, we have that itemized on the agenda.
Right.
And then after we go through and approve personnel, Dr. Micah always does introductions. So we would have the item listed, and then at the end, after action has been taken, we would introduce and say that person's name. Correct? Is that what,
Yeah, I mean.
would you be willing to do that?
Sure. I mean, you know, we will do whatever y'all want to do. The practice for a long time in this district has usually been to list those positions, as you've noticed in the past, right? Principals, you know, maybe the athletic director for whatever, an executive director. And it's always been deemed as the high level of public interest in that position. So things like a director of, say, federal programs, maybe a lot of people don't really know about it or do, but we can definitely add to that. Dr. Newman, I mean, you don't see a problem with it, do you?
No, I don't, Dr. Micah. It's really at the preference of the board. As Dr.
Yeah.
Micah said, it was those high-interest positions that had always been listed.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you all, make sure we're correct on this, is that what you would like us to do in those. Now, that won't be teaching positions because those go in, so, okay? These will be positions that we bring to you during closed session for you then to approve. So then you want them basically itemized, like assistant principal for Johnson High School, director of federal programs, so forth and so on, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes?
That makes sense.
All right. Yeah, we can do that. Peggy, can you note that for us, please? So you'd like for that to begin at our next board meeting, correct?
November.
November's board meeting? All right.
Sure.
We can.
And there's a way to do that to where we don't have to take action on each individual position. So we can we frame it to where it's, we list those
We can
positions.
take one
it's all
motion.
one
We
action
take
item.
one vote.
Yes.
Kinda like consent or something.
Yes. In other words, I think your question, Mr. Byer, is do we have to vote then, say if there were, and I'm just thinking in the summer, correct? When there are a lot of movement, people have been moved around. Rather than doing maybe the 10 or the 5, we're a large district, right? Is to be able to do one action item to say, yes, we're hiring all these positions, but we're taking one motion to hear. Yes, there is a way to do that so that you don't have to vote on each individual item.
Okay.
And we're still within legal compliance, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I get calls sometimes about how people can watch the board meeting because it's being live streamed. They can't find the YouTube thing. Is there a way to put that on the agenda notice or include a link or?
I'm looking at Peggy because so just so you guys know this, but we moved from Board Book to Board Book Premier. No, it's not. Poor Peggy and Yvonne. In fact, they had a work study session a couple of weeks ago because there's a lot of glitches and things in it right now that they're working through. But Peggy, can we add the YouTube link in the agenda notice? Okay, so we have that availability to put, because Aubrey, I don't believe the link ever changes, correct? I'm correct? So it'd be always the same link, so then it would just be that language, I guess, that we would include at the beginning, correct? Notice is hereby given, and somewhere in there we'll embed it? Okay.
But for what it's worth in Board Book Premier, we've been dealing with it for a year at TASB as directors, and yeah, we've struggled too. And we have been assured multiple times that but the problem is they not only were dealing with COVID, but they were transitioning, 1,000 different school districts at once. And so it's been a huge challenge, and you have all my sympathy because, boy, I've seen it from the other side. So you're doing an amazing job to have gotten as far with it as you have.
But I'd also like to encourage everyone who may be watching now to
The millions,
just go to
the millions of viewers.
the millions of viewers to go to YouTube. It's real easy to just go straight to YouTube and type in NEISD board meeting. The previous ones comes up, and additional videos come up as well that you might be missing, like the superintendent's great messages and other information. A lot of information is shared on our YouTube channel. So, you can get it on your phone. You don't have to sit in front of a computer. So just want to encourage everyone
And the faculty,
to do
the
that.
teacher spotlights, the wonderful things that our teachers do around this district that they may not even know, programs that we may have that they may not be aware of. It is a great resource. You're very correct. Good job, Terry.
So we have to thank the guy behind that screen over there because he's really the magician that makes this all work, right, Jason? But that is something that, for those millions of viewers, Mr. Byer, that are watching, right, we did not always live stream these board meetings. And so you guys that have been on it, right? But when COVID hit, it was one of those things that Jason came and approached me and said, gosh, what do you think about this? And so, of course, just like when you couldn't attend, Jason worked with Tom and they figured it out. Just same with you, Sandy. Those guys do a great job. So, I just don't think people are accustomed to it yet and maybe don't realize you just have to go to YouTube. It's just a YouTube channel that Jason, I believe, created. Am I right? Okay.
Don't
All
be
right.
so modest.
So, right, he's being humble. That's good. But the thing is, I think it's to build a habit, right, for people to know that's where it's housed. It's really out there. Please tune in, watch it. I think one of the, I'm not going to tell you it's not millions, but we've had hundreds before watch and tune in. And what's really good about it, and I'll be honest with you from the administration side, is rather than our principals having to attend certain things, like when we did the budget workshops, I asked them, really voluntold them to attend and listen to our discussions. And so one of our principals who's been around for a very long time said, I went through, am I 3 minutes up?
Sorry.
But, one of the principals that went through and actually learned under Richard Middleton, school finance, emailed me and said, I'll be honest with you, I was kind of disgruntled that you were making us do it, but I'm so glad because I had no idea how much it has changed. So it's really helped us push out and get them to also understand what's going on. So we've been encouraging them as well to tune in at certain points.
Can I ask a favor of the back row? Can you turn that iPad, because it keeps flipping on, or whatever that is on the bottom? Yeah, it's like, it's like a light flashing at me every once in a while, and I'm like, what is that? Okay, thank you so much. Squirrel, I was being distracted.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
That's right.
Okay, thank you so much for doing that. All right, on to resolutions. B, 1, possible action regarding Principals Month proclamation. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to ask Dr. Brent Brummett, Executive Director for School Administration, to come up to the podium to address this action item. And as he's walking up, President Grona, I wanted to mention, I heard that there may be a video that was created by the board, and I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words before Mr. Gattell plays it.
Oh, no, because it's going to be a surprise.
Okay.
We haven't even seen it.
All right. Mr. Gattell?
So
I hope it's good.
here we go. Is it on the YouTube channel?
Our principals are the heart and soul of our district.
An educator, a counselor, a problem solver, a mentor.
It's impressive and amazing to see them work so hard on a daily basis, especially during this time right now.
Our principals set the tone for each campus.
They develop leaders on their campus.
They are fierce protectors of our children and our community. They put our children first, sometimes before their own family.
They are also often thought of as the face of their campus, and as such play a critical role in their community.
I just don't know how they do it.
They lead and motivate their staff and their teachers.
Because they provide a safe and secure and welcoming environment for our children and staff every day.
Our NEISD principals are special to us because they have demonstrated how they are not only well prepared and professional, but they truly care about the students that we entrust to their judgment.
I'm so proud to be associated with this incredible group of people.
They are invested in the well-being and the education of all students, and I believe that they truly build strong communities.
I'm grateful for the time, talent, and energy I see in this district from our principals on a day-to-day basis.
So I think that's what really makes our principals the best principals in Bexar County.
They are caring.
They are selfless.
Highly engaged.
Energetic.
A strong advocate for their children.
Dedication.
Passion and empathy.
Student-centered and compassionate.
Thank you to our principals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to all the principals in Northeast ISD.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of the wonderful principals in our district. You all rock.
I know. Thank you, Jason, for putting that together.
And thank you to our awesome principals.
Yes, our amazing principals. But do you have something you want to say? Because
No.
we've just.
No, ma'am, my work here is done.
Are you glad we called you up so you could just stand there?
Yes, ma'am.
Stretch your legs.
Yes, ma'am. Having said all that, good evening, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. As you all well know, the National Association of Elementary and Secondary Principals have previously designated October 2020 as National Principals Month. Certainly, as you all know from starring in a video, the principals in Northeast ISD exemplify those qualities. From working to address students' academic and emotional well-being to providing resources and supports to staff in pursuit of the goals that you as a board have established for our students in our schools, to collaborating with their communities in the attainment of those goals, certainly the principals in this district go above and beyond. I think we've all seen that in an unprecedented era, unparalleled leadership rises to the top. And having said that, and for that reason, we would ask that you as a board consider adopting a formal resolution designating October 2020 as Principals Month in Northeast ISD.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to edit your video if you don't. By the way.
I know. No, thank y'all for letting us do that. It was fun. We really wanted to show our appreciation to the principals, and so hopefully they'll get to see it. Because we do have some amazing, they've done a lot. They've had to do a lot since March, and it's just, they've done a great job. So do I have a motion to approve the attached proclamation and declare October 2020 as Principal Month in Northeast ISD?
So moved.
Everybody gets it? Ms. Williams, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Brumett. Item 2, possible action regarding Texas Education Human Resources Day. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Gina Elliott, our Senior Director in Human Resources, to come to the podium. She's watching from out there, so hopefully she's making her way over here right now. If not, I can read the resolution. But while Ms. Elliott is making her way to the podium, I would really like to thank our Human Resources Department, who, like all the departments through this entire district, have worked so tirelessly through this difficult time. Our Human Resources Department has worked tirelessly to take care of the people in this district. So without further ado, Ms. Elliott.
Good evening. Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, our executive staff, and guests. Governor Greg Abbott has designated October 14th, this Wednesday, 2020, as Texas Education Human Resources Day. And I'd like to share with you the resolution for your consideration. Recognition of Northeast Independent School District, Texas Education Human Resources Day. Whereas the Human Resources Division is instrumental in recruiting, selecting, resourcing, and retaining quality staff in support of providing an excellent education for all students. And whereas Human Resources plays a key role in fostering satisfaction and loyalty among employees by allowing for professional growth and development and keeping employees informed about policies, working conditions, compensation, and benefits. And whereas Human Resources monitors and manages current and future workforce trends, organizational culture, legal and legislative trends, and ethical and social responsibility. Excuse me. And whereas Human Resources is an important part of district leadership and is vital to the overall productivity and efficiency of the district's workforce. And whereas Human Resources is a valued and respected department that sustains the district's most important asset, its people. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Northeast Independent School District does hereby resolve that October 14, 2020 will be observed as Texas Education Human Resources Day throughout the district. The board also encourages students, staff, and parents to express their appreciation to our Human Resources team members for their dedication and commitment to Northeast ISD employees and students. At this time, we are recommending and asking that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution recognizing this Wednesday, October 14th of 2020 as Texas Education Human Resources Day.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. That's awesome. I don't remember us doing this in the past. So thank y'all for bringing forth this resolution because y'all do a tremendous job and
thank you.
We need.
Look, I will tell you, Gina and all of the folks in HR really had a huge task on their hands at the beginning of this school year with FFCRA, FMLA, ADA, find a few more acronyms. I mean, it really was. And I can just tell you that in discussing with my colleagues around the county and the city and the state, our team really knocked it out of the park. They really did. They went the extra mile. They were working on weekends to try to get answers to staff. Mm-hmm. And so they really did go the extra mile for them, and you can see it in so many ways with employees. And then, again, just talking with other superintendents. We just did not face a lot of the same issues that they did, and it's greatly attributed to the work that they did down in that department.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
If I could comment, I think just, ditto what Dr. Micah said. So my day job, I work at UTSA, and just recently, the Human Resources Department actually changed its name, and I'm like, why are you changing your name and all of that? But they actually call themselves People of Excellence now, instead of Human Resources. So I think that really describes our folks here at NEISD. They're truly people of excellence. So thank you for everything that you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution recognizing October 14, 2020 as Texas Education Human Resources Day?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosso. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Item 3, possible action regarding National School Bus Safety Week resolution. Mr. Clary.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, I asked Mr. Jack DeForest to make his way to the podium for this presentation.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'm honored to be here this evening seeking support for the resolution before you, recognizing our transportation staff and organization next week in support of National School Bus Safety Week, October 19th through the 23rd. Our department is privileged to be one small part of a fantastic school district, and the support we receive in that role as professionals from our central office leadership and with fantastic board leadership here is unprecedented. I know because I talked to other transportation directors. Thank you again for your consideration and support of the resolution that you have in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we get to come drive a bus again?
You can drive a bus anytime you want. And any new board members who missed last year's opportunity, we'd love to have them back.
I'm waiting for that day.
But I saw it. I saw it.
I'm waiting for that day.
You're waiting?
Yes, I'm terrified, but I'm waiting for that day.
I missed it last year, so yes, I will be there, Mr. DeForest.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I have pictures to prove that it happened if anybody'd like to see those.
Yes. It was very fun. It was a great experience to see what our drivers go through every day.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a
didn't
lot.
have, I didn't have screaming people on my bus. Do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, because Jack did not bring it up, and I really think, I know y'all know this, but they need a shout out. You know, when we weren't running buses at the beginning of the year, right? Those folks went out and cleaned campuses, all the high touch points. They they did. So I wonder if you lost any drivers, because I know, speaking to several principals, they said, wow, that we'd really like to keep them in our custodial staff.
They did.
But the level of customer service that those folks everywhere, every campus, the executive staff and I have now made over 200 campus visits so far this year. When we were out seeing those, his people were so great and so welcoming and so grateful they had their job, but also so willing to lend a hand to make sure that our schools were safe. It was amazing. Jack, your people really did go the extra mile.
Like I say on Twitter, it was our pleasure.
And Dr. Micah, I just wanted to thank you for mentioning that. And just one other thing that, and I don't want to take the thunder from Ms. Glosson, but transportation was an integral part in delivering meals this summer as well. When we weren't delivering kids, we were delivering meals to them. So kudos to them for that. They really just have stepped up to do whatever it takes. So I just want to publicly thank them and comment on that. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Clary.
We appreciate them greatly.
You bet.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming October 19 to 23, 2020 as National School Bus Safety Week?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thanks again, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am.
LaForce.
Thank you.
Item 4, possible action regarding school lunch week. Mr. Clary.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff and guests, Ms. Glosson is at the podium to make this presentation.
Hi, good evening, all. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize October 12th through the 16th, 2020 as National School Lunch Week. The challenges in 2020 put the spotlight on school meal programs and the important role that they play in our community. Who would have imagined a lunch lady gracing the cover of Time magazine? Northeast ISD school nutrition staff stepped up to the challenge and represented the district to thousands of families each day. Many of these families did not have students in the district, and our staff were the face of any ISD to them. Our staff put aside their own fears, personal struggles, and reported to work each day, even when the city was under a stay-at-home order. The school nutrition staff did not close, the school nutrition office did not close for even a day throughout the spring closure. The dedicated staff in our office were the unseen heroes as they coordinated supply deliveries, managed logistics, and kept up with the ever-changing regulations and guidelines. Even more amazing is that they did this with smiles and always kept in mind that their work was feeding our children. I'd like to share with you a short video that was put together to thank them for their dedication to the mission. But I ask that you please keep in mind that some of the footage was filmed prior to recommendations for mask usage.
We were serving our traditional meals in the cafeterias at all of our different schools, but then of course with COVID-19 closures, we had to close down everything and immediately pivot and change all of our plans. Because our goal is to always make sure that no child goes hungry and every child has access to a nutritious meal. Everyone did such a wonderful job of working together, understanding that we were going to have to pivot and understanding that we would all have to work together to make this work.
Thank you so much.
You have a good day.
Thank
We'll see you Wednesday, okay?
Thank you.
This is really why we do what we do, is to provide meals to kids. And this may look a little bit different than normal, but we're still accomplishing the purpose and the mission of our department.
Our staff is exceptional, and I can't tell you how many staff members told us, oh, we're ready to do this. Our number one goal is to feed all these children. Whatever we have to do to pivot, to change, to make these daily modifications to make sure this happens, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it with a smile on our face. Managers, assistant managers, supervisors, directors, and all of our teams in our offices that are making this happen. That's really what it shows, is that we came together. We're in this together to make sure that the children are continuing to get fed, because a lot of children do depend on our meals throughout the year, and we wanted to make sure that they did have this continual access. So to us, that was a really huge milestone and celebration, but we know we could not do that without all of our staff members who have been helping us through this whole process. All the staff members, all the way from our warehouse individuals, all the way up to our directors, for putting in all those hard work and long hours to make sure that every child does have access to this meal, and that even though we know we're changing on a daily basis, we appreciate all the hard work that you do, and we know that things are going to continue to be fluid, but we're going to be able to get through this together because we are in this together.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, I wish that they were all here to hear that, but they do feel appreciated, I can guarantee you, so thank you. And so our meal distribution continues for virtual and our in-person learners, and as of October the 9th, we've distributed more than 2.5 million curbside meals, and we're feeding 16,000 students at school each day. Words can't express my gratitude to the ladies and gentlemen of the school nutrition department. And so for all these reasons, I request that you approve October 12th through the 16th, 2020 as National School Lunch Week. And we hope to invite you to serve lunch with us in 2021. But for now, we hope that the t-shirt at your spot lets you know that you are part of our team. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was always such a fun day to get to go serve lunch. But the school nutrition, they just did an amazing job throughout that whole pandemic. I mean, it was just amazing. And I got to work alongside them several days, and just their joy of handing out those meals. I mean, it just was awesome. And then to see the kids and the families that were just so excited to see them out there, it just really was very emotional. So this is awesome.
Yeah, my
Yes.
mask is soggy. I don't know why. I was going to say, I had friends in the neighborhood, moms in the area, that were complaining that they had to take their children up to the schools not to get meals, just to see their friends, the lunch crowd. They just want to drive by and say hi to them because they missed them. So, and I think it was mutual. I think our nutrition staff was thrilled to see their children coming by to say hi. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Y'all were amazing.
Thank
Just
you.
amazing.
Still are amazing.
Yes, still are amazing.
Yep.
Very fortunate.
Do I have a motion to approve October 12th through 16, 2020 as National School Lunch Week?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Was Ron trying to say something? Ron wasn't trying to say something, was he? Okay.
Did we ever decide how we were going to handle that one, though?
I would
Because
just,
we don't know if it's for this or
I
for
would just,
something else.
yeah. So we can just ask. We can just ask. Okay, item C, board policy. 1, possible action regarding board policy update 115, second reading. Ms. Turner, but before we go to that, I'd like to read something. Before we go into this item, I want to begin by addressing some troubling misinformation that has been circulated to our community about our consideration of a local policy tonight. The policy has to do with the investigation of complaints filed by students, parents, or employees regarding discrimination prohibited by Title IX, which is a federal law that applies to all public school districts in the state of Texas and around the country. Title IX specifically prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex or gender. Under Title IX, as an example, sexual harassment of a student by another student would be prohibited at any district campus or department. The law has existed since 1972. On August 14, 2020, the Department of Education, currently led by Education Secretary Betty DeVos, which enforces Title IX, implemented a mandatory process that all public school districts, as well as colleges and universities, must follow in order to investigate and handle complaints of discrimination made under Title IX. Information about the mandatory requirements for investigating any and all Title IX complaints can be found on the Department of Education's website at www.ed.gov. Contrary to the misinformation and, frankly, outright lies that have been spread about the local policy the board will consider and vote on tonight, the only thing we are doing is incorporating the mandatory process for investigating any Title IX complaints the district may receive. This is being done in compliance with federal Department of Education requirements for the handling of these kinds of complaints. There is no expansion of defining what sex or gender means in the policy, and definitions in the policy are taken from existing federal law or regulation. Further, this policy has absolutely nothing to do with sports participation. We, like every other Texas public school district, are governed by the University Interscholastic League when it comes to boys and girls sports. UIL rules require that students wanting to play sports must do so with other students of their same biological gender as listed in the child's birth certificate. Nothing in this policy tonight changes that rule. Indeed, only the UIL can change that. The district's goal is to provide a welcoming environment to all students so that they can focus on learning. Like it always has been, the board's expectation is that the district investigate any complaints from parents or students of harassment or bullying so that steps can be taken, if needed, to provide a safe environment for everyone. Before we go further, I'd like to ask the NEISD attorney, Rick Lopez, to address some policy matters.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to come and talk a little bit about the way that policies are structured for not only Northeast ISD, but really for school districts throughout the state. There are a couple of pieces to every policy, and you'll see where the Texas Association of School Boards, which provides a policy service to all school districts in Texas, prepares a legal and a local component to each policy. The legal component is really something that boards don't adopt, and the reason is because that is the law. Those legal components are merely comprised of current law as monitored by TASB on whether we're talking about pieces from the Texas Education Code, applicable other state laws, or federal laws. Those are things that are sacrosanct and they cannot be changed. The local policy component is where school districts get to make some choices. Obviously, TASB, where needed, will make recommendations, but ultimately, a local policy cannot contradict or go against in any way what the legal policy provides. So under a local policy, you can make certain choices about how you may implement a legal policy or a law, but you cannot go beyond or go against what the applicable law may be. So that's really how it always works. And so when you go into the board policy manual, most of the time you will always see a legal component to a policy and a local component. Sometimes you will also see exhibit components, and those are just documents that really flow from those particular policy issues. By way of example, in Title IX, we may have documents where parents or students can report a particular complaint or issue that their child may be facing that would merit investigation. And that's the only purpose of tonight's policy, as you talked about, Mrs. Grona. It's just really implementing what we're all required to implement. And I have worked with the pupil personnel department very closely to ensure that our process for investigating these kinds of complaints is congruent with what is required by federal law and the Department of Ed. Okay. Take any questions that you all may have.
Questions for Mr. Lopez?
I had a couple questions. If we're going to do, are we doing? Okay. Because it has gotten some emails and phone calls today about this particular agenda item. I did have some community members reach out to me and ask a couple of questions, and I just want to reiterate that I understand Mrs. Grona's statement about, one, athletics. This has nothing to do with the athletic policy of the district, if I can get
That's correct.
a yes or no on that.
That is correct.
And two, that this has nothing to do with, I guess, this does not change any existing policies in the district as far as employees or personnel, as far as how they are to conduct themselves on a campus, in this building, at any facility in the district. It does not allow them or give them the opportunity to do anything that would go against those local policies as far as what they're allowed to do at a school, like what restrooms they can use and what rooms they can enter and how they have to conduct themselves around students.
That's correct. There is nothing to change that. There's a required standard of conduct that Northeast expects of employees, and nothing in this policy changes that.
Okay. I just want to make sure as we're getting these questions from the community, that we're clarifying these things and making sure people understand what it is we're actually looking at today.
That's correct. And this is really dealing with the investigative process that we're required to follow in the event that we receive a Title IX issue that requires an investigation or a complaint, whether it comes from an employee or a parent or a student. But other than that, it does not expand any definitions or allow employees to have any further leeway to change what is already being defined in the policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Certainly.
Yes. So, Mr. Lopez, anyone that objected to this policy who probably hadn't read it or something like that, and they were told that it was an objectionable, it seems to me from and I've read the policy several times, that they would be objecting to someone being disciplined for being a sexual harasser in multiple different formats, whether it was verbal, cyber, or anything else. So if you object to this policy, you are okay with children and adults harassing other children or adults. I mean, that's kind of...
That's the upshot of that. Certainly, the policy is designed to ensure that there is, that every Title IX complaint, whether we're talking about an allegation of sexual harassment, of bullying, of anything that may be based on discrimination or retaliation on the basis of sex, then yeah, that's obviously something that we have to investigate. And what this policy is intended to do is ensure that whether you go to school at Northeast Independent School District or any other school district in Bexar County, that you're going to see very similar investigative processes so that schools take these complaints seriously and take whatever actions are necessary to eliminate any discrimination or retaliation in the form of sexual harassment or otherwise, to eliminate that behavior. And that is geared toward, again, ensuring that all students, regardless of sex, have an equal opportunity to access their educational opportunities that the school district offers. And that's the goal of the law. That has always been the goal of the law. And really and truly, that is the desire is to ensure that this process gives everybody a fair opportunity, both as an accused person as well as a complainant, to have due process, to ensure that both sides get an opportunity to tell their side of the story, and various people within the district would have an opportunity to review the information uncovered as part of the investigation before any decisions and actions are made.
I would have to say that the safety of children would be a top priority for me, but that's just me. So basically, because Mrs. DeVos has mandated this, every single school district in the nation will be or already has enacted some policy or procedure to follow her mandate.
Yes, in fact, this final rule that was promulgated was done over the summer, and the Department of Education put an August 14th deadline, as you heard Mrs. Grona refer to, for all public entities that provide educational services that receive any kind of federal funding. They must comply with this process. And that includes colleges and universities. In fact, colleges and universities were really the genesis of this rule because, of course, if you've read in the media over the last few years, a lot of universities and colleges have, for want of a better term, bungled the investigation into various types of gender-based, sex-based claims, that is, sexual assaults, things like that on campus. And the goal of the education department was to make sure that everybody's going to follow the same process so things don't get swept under the rug. And this applies to K through 12, so any public school district in the country that accepts federal money, which most do, then this is something that you are required to follow. And you
Okay.
don't really have an option in the matter.
And then also, too, just to follow up on one of the other pieces of misinformation, and y'all both referred to it, and that's that TASB, this came through TASB. TASB did not write this rule. They are the service that provides us policy services.
Right.
Instead of hiring an attorney or a staff in-house or something like that. This is a
Sure.
service that's provided by a nonprofit organization that provides multiple other services. So they didn't write the law.
No, they did not.
They did not.
No, the final rule was promulgated again by the Department of Education.
Okay, just want to make sure that's very clear because I know that that has been passed around as truth, and I knew it not to be, but I felt it was only fair that other people knew what the truth is. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
So again, and I maybe just going to repeat what you said, but so said differently, TASB's not making recommendations of use this language. They're just suggesting, hey, this is what's required to be in here, and so that's why we're suggesting you adopt this.
Correct. Yeah, TASB is not expanding anything other than reporting and giving school districts advice on the implementation of the final rule and the investigatory requirements.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, Terry.
So again, just to be clear, and I read it as well, this update is again focused on and someone who knows about discrimination and the process and the rules and what we need to follow, not sex identification or gender identification.
That is correct.
I didn't find anything like that. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
one more fault. So if I remember right, and it's been 4 years, so forgive me if I mistake, but I believe we all took an oath to uphold the law. And so given that this is, as we understand it, the law, would it be your recommendation that we adopt this?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
I mean, the risk that you run is really twofold. Is one that you would lose potentially federal funding for not complying with this particular law, as is the case with any federal monies that come in that have requirements attached to them. And then the other thing is, look, the idea that you're going to unify and create a single discrete process by which to investigate these complaints, really the goal is to ensure that complaints like this are not swept under the rug, and that if there is an issue with a student that a parent reports, or that, again, an employee may report. If there is an issue of discrimination, then the district has the opportunity to look at it. Everyone gets due process, and the district can make informed decisions and take any necessary actions to eliminate any discrimination or retaliation.
Thank you.
That's the goal of the law.
I had one more question.
Go ahead.
On Exhibit E, and I don't know if this may be to Dr. Micah instead of Mr. Lopez, but we list all of the Title IX coordinator contact information. It's basically all the principals
Yes.
I'm seeing in the exhibit. Are those positions they already had, or are we just formalizing this, or is this something that?
We are formalizing that.
Right.
Yes, and that's part and parcel of the final rule, is that you have to have a Title IX coordinator identified at each of your individual campuses, in our case, so that if there is a complaint, that Title IX coordinator is a person to whom that complaint can be referred, and from there, the Title IX coordinator can then get it out to the investigator to begin the process.
Right.
So the other function of the Title IX coordinator is to ensure that if there are complaints that come in, that the process is being followed, so that the proper investigation is being conducted, and again, the proper information can be gathered from which the decision maker would eventually be able to formulate decisions as to whether or not there's been a violation, and if so, what steps need to be taken to correct that violation.
And then the other exhibits, A through D, which are the initial form, or not application, but the initial complaint, the appeals, is that all language that we got from, as a recommended forms from other, like from TASB or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as you might imagine,
And it's all basic, it's, name, situation,
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
Okay.
It is to ensure that, again, there's the opportunity for the complainant to provide as much information as possible,
Right.
so that the investigator can have then the opportunity to chase down all of the information and gather, whether it's documents, witness interviews, things of that nature. And again, that's the way the process is to unfold.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Lopez? Okay, thank you
All
for
right, thank you all very
being here
much.
and doing that. Thank you for clarifying. I'm not calling people yet. Go ahead.
Mr. Byer, I just want to follow up with you. The last when we did the first reading, you had called out some color changes, right? So I wanted you to know that staff went back and took a look at those color changes, all right? And what we found is that actually is how it came to us from TASB. It wasn't anything we changed on colors. So it was just their component, all right?
Yeah.
So just so you know, it really,
Well,
it was their error, but we wanted to go back and make sure we did our due diligence to see what had happened there.
And in the past, there's been some of these updates where they've struck out a date, but it's the exact same date afterwards, and I would just want to make
Correct.
sure that it wasn't us making that judgment call,
No.
or it was a line that had the word superintendent, and then the word next to it was the word superintendent. And
Yes,
so
sir.
I know that doesn't come from us. I just wanted to make sure that we went back and looked at it and
No, I appreciate you pointing it out because, again, Dr. Newman, Mr. Jimenez, and their folks really did look into, where did that come from and how did it get there, and what they found is it came from TASB exactly the way that you found it. So good eyes on you for catching that.
tell my optometrist that, please.
Peggy, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
I don't have anything else to say. Mr. Lopez said it all.
Okay, all right, thank
So,
you. I just
thank
wanted
you.
to give you the opportunity.
Thank you.
'cause I kind of just jumped right in there at the beginning. Okay, we have had several people sign up to speak to this agenda item, so I'm going to read the portion from Matters from the Floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although we may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures, The matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas 78217. Ms. Huey.
We have one speaker that just says agenda items, and it does not designate which agenda item. So do you want them called first? It's a Mr. Michael Osborne, and all it says is agenda items.
Okay.
So if it's not, it doesn't say that it's this item, so I don't know if he's referring to a future one or what. Yeah.
Chief, will you let him in? Michael Osborne? Okay, thanks, Chief.
So did they hear the talk then?
If they were in.
Were they given the? Okay.
313.
They were in the room before. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Do what?
Are you going to ask them to repeat name and address, or?
Okay. Sorry, guys. Is that the door opening and closing? It's a ghost. Sounds like a ghost, though. They're wasting time. They're wasting time. Oh.
What do you think that name is?
Kanefke.
Kanefke? Okay, and you think this is Francis? Okay. Mr. Osborne, you did not, when you signed up, you did not indicate which agenda item you wish to address. Could you tell us which item that is, please?
No, I thought that the time to speak was at the end, according to the agenda.
Yes, if you're speaking to matters from the floor, that would be at the end, but if you were addressing a specific agenda item, you're called for that agenda item.
Well, I was curious about what this, can you hear fine? Okay, because we couldn't hear upstairs when Mrs. Huey and Mr. Jimenez.
Which agenda item
Mr.
did you intend to address?
Well, I was interested in talking about this one, but I was curious as to what you were proposing. I heard somebody say that somebody lied about what was being proposed.
If you want to talk about this agenda item, we're going to start your.
I'm talking about it right now.
Okay, if you'll
I'm
say your name and address for the record, sir, and we'll start your time.
I'm curious about what it is.
Time.
I'm curious about what it is that you are proposing before you asking people to talk about the item that you're proposing. What I heard was somebody saying that accusing some anonymous people of some unspecified lies about what might have been intended to be discussed tonight, but we still haven't heard what the specific items are that you're proposed to vote on. So I don't understand how anybody can comment on something that was not in an agenda item, or we have no access to some packet that y'all have. And so I can't talk about something that you haven't told us. I can't comment on something that's unspecified that you haven't presented yet. I will wait and talk about during the floor time the items that once you present what it is that that you're proposing for some policy or whatever the correct term is for this update 115, I guess that's what it is. Is that what the issue is? Thank you.
Patrick Van Dolen.
Thank you, Jason, for doing that.
Thank you, Jason.
They all need to come down.
Can we pick another one?
Are, Chief, are any of them down there? Okay, tell me who's down here, please. No, because she's going to be at the end. We're allowing the people who signed up to speak to this specific agenda item, which is update 115. So I need either Michael Konefke, Jack Finger, something Williams, Mary Castle, Renette King, or Patrick Von Dolen.
Sir, we'll need your name and address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. Patrick Von Dolan, 2811 Redland Creek, San Antonio, Texas, 78259. Ready? All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Superintendent, all the other board administration, apologize, I have to put my glasses on here. My eyes are not what they used to be. My name is Patrick Von Dolan. I'm a parent of 9 children, and the oldest 6 have all attended Northeast Independent School District in some form or fashion, and all the way through from kindergarten all the way up to high school. And a matter of fact, I think we're the only family possibly that had 5 children at Bulverde Creek Elementary at one time, but they were all sequential. We do appreciate, my wife and I do appreciate Northeast Independent School District's good work to teach virtues and build good character. So I want to thank you for that up front. Speaking as a parent and on behalf of San Antonio Family Association and over 2,000 San Antonio families, there's great concern about the policy that you are about to vote on. I did just listen to the testimony of your attorney and that was said there, but there is overwhelming concern of the language, and I ask you to postpone this until there's greater clarity that's given to parents and to shed some light on what you're about to do. About agenda item 8C1 that involves updating 115, there is a great need for that clarification. The terms sexual orientation, gender identity, gender-based harassment are all terms that evoke special class protections for people based on their lifestyle choices and not how they were naturally made and against the natural order. All of us want to make sure that students are protected and are safe. There certainly needs to be a set procedure for complaints, and people need to be protected. Mrs. Winkley, I believe it was you that led the prayer this evening to start the public session and stated in your holy name, which was very good. That holy name is God himself. And God made each of us in his image and likeness. He made each of us, as he said in Genesis 1:27, stating he made them male and female. The overwhelming percentage of parents and taxpayers in Northeast ISD believes in God and his holy Bible. That means they believe in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 through 28. Parents don't want public schools to promote unhealthy or unnatural lifestyle choices, or the confusion that results from the revisionist and progressive ideology that describes what is normal and healthy as something not. Traditional ISDs in San Antonio, and especially Northeast ISD, are losing thousands of public school students every year. Northeast ISD is suffering, I know, as a result. Passing this update might lead to even more parents pulling their students from Northeast ISD schools.
Your time is up, sir.
I encourage you again to postpone this until there's greater clarification. Thank you for your time.
This name, I'm afraid I'll mispronounce it. Konefke, Michael Konefke.
The only one out there is Castle? Okay, she can come in because she's for this item. Go ahead, ma'am.
Ms. Castle? Ms. Castle, if you'll go to the mic and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mary Elizabeth Castle, and I'm the Policy Advisor for Texas Values.
And your address, ma'am, for the record?
I don't live in the area, but I work for Texas Values. We're based in Austin, Texas, at 900 Congress Avenue.
Thank you.
Suite L115. All right, may we begin? Thank you. All right, as I said, I'm the Policy Advisor for Texas Values. We're a public policy firm that studies policies for school districts. Before I was in this role, I actually worked for the General Counsel Office at a university where we actually worked on ADA compliant policies. Now, update policy L115 from TASB is a good policy in some respects. It has good things that relate to student enrollment policies. It has things related to sexual harassment. However, there are other issues within the policy that can create legal problems. For example, in this letter that I have a handout at the edge of the board table, you will see that the U.S. Department of Education has concluded that the Bostock ruling does not apply to schools in all settings. While it does apply to some settings, we do acknowledge that, it does not apply to all settings. So it's very important that you take time to look at the policy and where this recent Supreme Court case does apply in L115. Secondly, Bostock cannot be used to justify changes on policies in relation to same-sex institutions like restrooms, housing, separate toilets, showers, and sports teams. Thirdly, the ACLU's application of Bostock to school dress codes, which we have seen in other school districts, is also not in compliance with the Supreme Court's decision, and schools should not change those policies either. Now, you may say you have not done these things yet, but the problem with adopting certain sections of L115 could create these problems in the future. So what I would recommend is what other school districts across Texas are doing. They are passing the policies in relations to sexual harassment and attendance policies, but they are creating committees to overgo DIA local and FNG and FFA where these problems occur. And they are creating separate committees where they are going over these problematic legal problems in L115 by TASB. And most importantly, TASB, there's been a lot of discussion about them tonight. The Texas Association of School Boards, I think like even your own board staff said, they're not requiring you to adopt any policy. So any policy that they recommend to you, it's not a requirement, you're not forced to pass it, and there's no rush to do it. So if you have the time, pass the good stuff, like the sexual harassment policy and the student attendance policy, and take time on the other policies like DIA local and FFH where there are legal complications. Thank you.
Hey, Chief.
Ron, can you check, are there any other ones?
Anybody else?
No, just those three that want to talk at the end.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pardon me, Chief, what'd you say?
Just the three, Mr. Cummings and a few others that
Oh, okay, so those are the last.
Oh, but they're for matters from the floor at the, okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, just want to make
Thanks
sure.
so much. Because we've got three on here. All right, thank you. Item D, instruction and, oh, wait, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm moving on.
Mr. Lopez, can you wait, please? I just want to ask him a question before we vote,
Okay, sure. Questions before we vote?
if that's okay. This lady from Austin that was just speaking about 115,
Uh-huh.
she made reference to only do, I could not understand why she would want to delay a federal mandate. Is that?
That's a great question. I have no idea. This policy, as written, does not expand the definitions of sex or gender under Title IX. The language that's incorporated into it is directly from case law related to Title IX cases. I'm really not sure where they're coming from on that.
And FFH and DIA are specifically about what you just were discussing, the
That's correct.
discrimination and
That's correct.
the processes for handling those complaints.
Yes, in
correct?
fact, FFH deals with students and parents.
And DIA
And
is
then
adults.
DIA deals with employees. And actually, DIA is a sort of umbrella policy that covers Title IX as well as other forms of discrimination that are recognized under Title VII, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, and other federal laws and state laws, including the Texas Labor Code, the Texas Commission on Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on a number of categories by employees or against employees. So that's the mechanism. That policy is the mechanism by which those employees can come forward and raise a complaint, which then triggers the district's duty to investigate the complaints. But it doesn't expand the definitions of any of those categories as they're currently written.
Okay. And she was talking about setting up committees and things like that. We already have processes in place to address those issues that she was discussing, correct? I think we've had these recommendations come to us before from parent committees, from staff committees, from all kinds of groups.
What I think I heard, Mrs. Huey, was that it might cause a problem somewhere down the line, is what I heard. Again, as Mr. Lopez has very clearly stated, we're not getting into the expansion of gender identity or any of those components. That's just not where we're at tonight.
No.
And so I think what I understood, and I was trying to take some notes and really understand it, is that it seems to be some angst maybe around that this opens a door, so to say.
The message I was receiving.
Okay. that is a door that just simply isn't opened at this point. I mean, we're not opening that door. I mean, again, if that door were to open, we'd have to bring it back here anyway for you all to vote on it. It's not something unilaterally that's going to happen on.
And that's not a short process.
Correct.
Anything like that, that's, we're
Correct.
talking months and months and months of work.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. I thank you. I needed that legal.
Sure.
Well,
I
and
Of course.
Didn't,
if I may too.
Go ahead.
Would you foresee any way for what we're doing tonight, or what's proposed before us, to, as Dr. Micah said, create any open door, or there be any connection to what might happen at UIL or any other sanctioned event by something like that? Because that's what I understood, that there might cause a problem at some point in the future, or, you know.
No. I mean, at this point, again, as we talked about earlier, UIL dictates its rules with respect to athletic competitions, and then even with respect to some academic competitions that it oversees across the state. So those pieces aren't going to change. There's nothing in this policy or in this final rule that was intended to change any of those things. All this is merely language that, again, really covers the investigatory process that we're all obligated to follow. And I will tell you, I mean, I'm part of the National School Boards, or excuse me, the National School Law Council, and this is a topic of discussion that comes up every day in terms of the implementation of the rule, how investigations should be handled, but no one is talking about the fact that this is now expanded. And the case that the policy advisor cited is the one that recently found that under Title VII, that sex discrimination can include other issues like gender identity or sexual orientation, but that has not been expressly applied to Title IX. So this policy does not open that door or apply that particular case to this situation.
Okay, say that one more time. The case she was referring to does not apply to Title IX.
It does not apply to Title IX?
Okay.
No, it does not. That decision was a
Because I had
Title VII.
read that on something else today and all that misinformation, how
Right.
they were trying to tie it to that.
No, that particular case was a Title VII employment discrimination case, and the Supreme Court, of course, the opinion was written by Neil Gorsuch, a Trump appointee, and he opined in connection with the majority that sex as defined under Title VII covered sexual orientation and other matters, but again, that has nothing to do with Title IX. It's a completely separate law.
And that has nothing to do with this update
No.
115 FFA.
That is correct. It has
not
nothing
an
to do
open
with it.
door, not nothing, just.
The two laws are completely separate, and one has nothing to do with the other.
Okay, and I just want to clarify again, you mentioned it for a second there, for Mr. Byers' millions that are watching on YouTube. We know who you are and what you do, but I want to clarify, you are an attorney,
Yes.
but your
Last I checked.
specialty, and we'll
Last I
give you
checked.
some leeway because you're an attorney, but your specialty is school law.
Yes, I've been practicing school law my entire 21-year career.
Okay, and for anyone else who doesn't know him, I think the rest of us know that he is held in extreme high esteem in this state
Absolutely.
when it comes to school law, that he is one of the go-to people on school law in the state of Texas. And as you mentioned, you do have national connections too. So I have a feeling that you're kind of keeping up on these things. So
Definitely.
thank you very much for your time this evening too. I know it's eating into your family time, so thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the People Personnel Department has also done great work in trying to get this implemented on very short notice. So definitely kudos to them as well for working on this.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay? Thank you all very much.
Anybody else have anything else? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the second and final reading of the above listed local policies included in Update 115 with additional revisions to policy FFH local as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, item D, instruction and campus administration. 1, possible action regarding a request for an exception to the bilingual education program. Mr. Jarrett.
Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests, I'd like to ask Alicia Calderon to come back to the mic and speak on this next agenda item.
Good evening again. Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So TEA requires that any district that has an enrollment of 20 students or more classified as English language learners in any language classification in the same grade level, that we should offer a bilingual education program. So we are currently, we have 2 items in this agenda, in this item. We qualify for a Vietnamese English bilingual program and an Arabic English bilingual program at different grade levels at the elementary grades. And so NEISD right now, it's unable to offer these programs in our school districts. In number 2, we also are requesting an exception for our dual language program at the high school level, because our high school teachers need also the bilingual certification. And so we are also filing for that exception. So we are recommending that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the request for both items for the exception to the bilingual program.
Does anyone have any questions from?
I do just have one question. So the dual language teachers in the high school level, they are being certified as they teach, or is it just an exemption because they don't have the certification in the dual language?
Right now, it's an exemption because they don't have the supplemental bilingual certification. They need a supplemental bilingual certification. So at the high school level, they're certified in their content area.
Okay.
So we have 2 science teachers and 2 social studies teachers that teach in the program, but they also need to add that bilingual supplemental. One of them is already certified. We are certifying the other 3.
Okay.
They're working on it, actually, so,
Okay.
right now.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to approve the submission of the request for both items for the exception to the bilingual program as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Possible action regarding request for English as a second language ESL program waiver. Sorry.
It's your night.
So the students who are not in the bilingual program, they qualify for an English as a second language program. And we also need to have teachers who are certified in ESL to provide services for our students. And so we have several teachers that are not fully certified yet. And so it will put them on the waiver. They will go through that certification process this year, and hopefully will get, certified by the beginning of next year. Again, we recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the request for waiver for the English as a second language program.
Does anybody have any questions about this?
I had one question. Are these new teachers, or are they, or not new to the district? Are they teachers that are coming to the program for the first time? Or?
There could be new teachers to the district. We really have moved fairly quickly to certify all of the current teachers, but there also can be teachers. For example, sometimes there are special education teachers who are now having to service English learners in the ESL setting.
Gotcha.
We also have teachers who haven't taught, in an ESL setting before, and they're placed in that situation now.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the submission of the request for waiver for the English as a second language ESL program as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I
I'll
have a second?
second.
Mr. Hasso, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 3, possible action regarding 2020-2021 District Improvement Plan. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to come forward to present our district improvement plan. As you're fully aware, the district improvement plan is developed annually and reviewed with the board. This is an opportunity for us to share the work that we're doing to prepare our schools and our kiddos to improve on an annual basis. And so Dr. Munoz will talk about the process, and she will point out specifically some newer items that have been added as we have shared the district improvement plan with you collectively. There are some equity items that we want to point out because I know, Ms. Williams, you have pointed out an interest in that during our HB3 presentation, and so we wanted to make sure we brought that back to the group. So I think they're finding it.
It's not on the desktop.
Did it get moved to our new cybersecurity facility already? It's already been transported.
Or taken. So it was up there. I mean, I've verified. So.
We're going to let you work on that a minute and go to a next item, if that's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, no worries. Item 4, possible action regarding cybersecurity magnet program naming. Mr. Jarrett.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Are you
President.
ready for that?
Yes, I am ready. As soon as Ben comes in. So, yes, Madam President,
Well,
at
let's
this
see,
time.
what can I be in charge of? No,
I
I'm just
promise I got this.
He's
Okay.
right there.
There he is. I was just waiting on him. So the next agenda item we want to bring to the board is the naming of the new cyber security system. We are bringing a name forward for consideration, and at this time I would like to turn it over to Ben Peterson for presentation.
See what?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, and executive staff. As you know, we are in the midst of planning a large and robust cybersecurity program, and would like to come to you tonight with the proposal of a name. That name being, and pardon the typo in your action item, the title of the name shall be the Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation at NEISD.
Okay, because I thought, man, that's an interesting name, institution.
What is the secret meeting there?
Okay, so say it again.
The Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation at NEISD. Okay. So we are very excited about bringing not only cybersecurity education, but also enveloping a K through 12 plan of true innovation that we're already beginning to work on right now. So we feel like that part of the name is very, very important to our institute.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Williams?
Do you have an acronym yet?
That's a great question because, as you know, most of our magnets lend themselves to an acronym. With this acronym, we were looking at ICSI.
There you go.
At NEISD.
There you go.
I thought you were going to spell Ben Peterson.
I tried to get that one in there.
Couldn't get.
I failed several
Not enough
times.
letters.
Yes, sir.
I thought you were going to name it. I thought you were going to name it the Williams Cyber Magnet Program.
I got stuck on the 2 L's right there. That one.
No,
really
see,
tough.
so your acronym is ICIN, Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation at NEISD, ICIN.
ICIN. I like that too. And we kind of thought we'd see. We talked about this with executive staff to let the acronym maybe just kind of become something that forms on its own.
Sure.
A bit organic.
I mean, because it kind of follows, in the cyber world, you have ISO,
Okay.
ISAO.
Yes, ma'am.
So just a
I like that.
suggestion.
I like that. No, that's great. That's great. I like
Information
that
sharing and analytical organization.
Yes, ma'am.
What normally happens when with the kids come up and call it what kids are going to call it, right? I mean, that's what they do, though, is that correct. I mean, and so we like the name because we really did have a lot of conversation over this. I think, Mr. Peterson, you brought us 5 choices.
I did.
Correct. And so we, executive staff and I, with Mr. Peterson, had a lot of discussions about it because we wanted this to really be sort of timeless in a sense that that innovation piece, right? That we're always looking at getting better and somehow it's, who knows in 10 years what that's going to look like. because as technology changes in that piece, so it was really trying to capture that. But yeah, we did have a lot of discussions about acronyms because some of them didn't come out with acronyms that, quite frankly, we were fond of or didn't kind of roll off the tongue. So that's interesting that y'all brought that up.
It's like I'd like my little grandson to call me Granny T, but he'll probably end up just saying Nana, you know? And I'll answer.
And I'm happy to know that it's institute, not institution, because that was going to be my first comment. I'm not sure about this name.
Right.
But I can do the institute. So. Okay.
Okay, so I know from conversations with fellow trustees around other areas that there's some major jealousy going on and some great admiration for what we're doing. So how many calls have you had from other districts going, we want to do this too?
Not so much from other districts. Daily, though. I'm getting calls daily, and most of them are industry partners that are just 100% on board.
Good.
And they are very, very excited. Mr. Beck, as many of you know, he is working single-handedly on the curriculum. And I say single-handedly, and that's probably not in the truest sense. He's working on the curriculum and then daily vetting it with industry professionals from DOD, from financial institutions, from UTSA. Mr. Beck and Vic Malloy have a great partnership and relationship, and so I appreciate you letting us be in touch with Vic and many others over there. Vic is a wonderful partner in this and has been for years. So we're excited about that. But we've received a lot of feedback, and only positive feedback.
Right.
Only positive, very, very excited feedback. And so we're really excited to roll it out.
Good.
Miss Huey, those calls even come to me because Judge Wolf actually called me one day out of the blue to congratulate us on it and said, I'm so glad to see Northeast on the cutting edge with doing that. Those are the kind of programs that we need in our city. When I ran into the mayor, when we were over at the groundbreaking at Morgan's Wonderland, we were talking about it. So it's really caught a lot of attention. And you're right, there is some jealousy with it as well, that there are districts that wish that they could have gotten there.
Yeah. But yes.
So do I have a motion, or did anybody else have anything else to say? 'Cause y'all know I try to be efficient. Do I have a motion to approve the name of this new facility to be the Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation at NEISD?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. Ms. Williams, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Munoz, are y'all ready? Awesome.
That is what our teachers have every day to deal with, folks, in this virtual world. Are things, the best laid plans, right? Sometimes don't work out. So you ready, Dr. Munoz?
Yes, I am.
All righty.
Murphy's Law, right? What can go wrong will go wrong. So
It's
but luckily we
2020,
got it.
right?
Absolutely. So good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Before you, you have the 2020-2021 District Instructional Improvement Plan. This document represents the goals of each division, as well as each department within each division that helps guide our district toward optimal student success. As part of this presentation, I've included the purpose behind the District Instructional Improvement Plan, along with the contents behind each component created by each division within our district. The District Instructional Improvement Plan guides both district and campus staff in the improvement of student performance for all student groups to attain state standards regarding all achievement indicators. The district TAPER report and STAR score reports help drive many of our goals for our department, and this is truly a representation of the hard work and diligence of many individuals within our district. I would like to take a moment to recognize all those who contributed to the contents of this document. So I guess a virtual round of applause for everybody who's watching. I would also like to thank Ms. Brandy Merriman. She kind of took me under her wing throughout this entire process, so it's been great. She has also worked alongside all departments to make sure that all information is recorded accurately and accordingly. So this is Ms. Brandy Merriman. For those of y'all that do not know her, she's going to be helping me with the presentation tonight. So if we go to slide number 2, under Texas Education Code 11.251, Under planning and decision-making process, it states that the Board of Trustees of each independent school district shall ensure that a district improvement plan and improvement plans for each campus are developed, reviewed, and revised annually for the purpose of improving performance for all students. The plans must be mutually supportive to accomplish the identified objectives, support the state goals and objectives under Chapter 4, which falls under public education mission, objectives, and goals. The board shall also adopt a policy to establish a district and campus planning and decision-making process that involves all stakeholders in establishing and reviewing goals, performance objectives, and major classroom instructional programs. Currently, we have the DEIC and members from within our community and all stakeholders who participate in that organization. And then we have the CIC, which is the Campus Improvement Committee. So as part of the table of contents for the District Instructional Improvement Plan, we do have the mission statement, which basically is defined by any ISD. We also have the board goals listed as numbers 1 through 8 on the DIP cover, District Improvement Plan. And we also have the accountability waiver, which is TEA's 2020 COVID-19 waiver. That was posted on March 24th, 2020, and it basically indicated that we were not rated due to the pandemic. In addition to that, at the bottom, we do have the notion that there is ongoing monitoring of the District Instructional Improvement Plan, and it's completed by the persons that are responsible at a minimum of 1 time per semester. But I can tell you that in my experience, in my short experience here in this district, we are constantly striving to reach our goals, and we are transitioning almost by the day. And so it's very, very important for us to be able to reach those goals that are indicated in this improvement plan. So the structure and the purpose of our District Instructional Improvement Plan starts with section and board goals. They identify the goals defined by the school district along with the school board. The target areas that are listed, they're targeted areas for improvement. There's measurable evaluation criteria that's summative, basically tells us the results of our goals. The performance objectives and strategies define what and how the district will work towards each goal. And then we have formative checkpoints, and that describes the programs, the assessments, and resources used to measure progress throughout the year. The underlying factor behind all of that is a timeline, persons responsible, costs, and resources per year. So that defines when, who, and what allocations will be used to reach our district goals. Under the division of the Instructional Improvement and Administration Division, we have Curriculum and Instruction, Performance and Planning, Special Education, Learning Support Services, Testing Services, Student Leadership and Wellbeing, Student Support Services, Fine Arts and Activities, Athletics, and Human Resources. Under the Division of Business Services, you have probably some of the most highly impacted departments. Although they are standing by themselves, they have been the topic of a lot of the work, which is technology services within our district and health services. And weaved in throughout our entire district instructional improvement plan, we have positive behavioral intervention supports, which is PBIS, and it's a collaborative initiative across divisions and departments. So now we're going to go ahead and navigate through the 2020-2021 District Instructional Improvement Plan, which is currently in draft form. There we go. So there we have our mission statement as stated, our board goals, which are listed there in numbers 1 through 8. We have the TEA waiver indicated along the front, along with the ongoing monitoring indicator at the bottom of that cover page. If we scroll down, we also have the contents that's divided by division, along with departments within each division, and then we have our actual plan. If we keep scrolling. So in order to ensure that we establish goals for both equity and accessibility, we have also added goals 1-5 and 12-6. And I'm going to go ahead and have Ms. Merriman go ahead and go to 1-5. Now 1-5 was established to reach House Bill 3 goals for early literacy and mathematics. as 12-6 was implemented for CCMR, or College and Career Military Readiness. Just so you know that both goals were highlighted with initiatives that were set for equity and accessibility for all student groups. And that is indicated and weaved throughout our entire district instructional improvement plan. So now that you have had the opportunity to review this document, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. The author of a number of these sections are available to answer your questions.
Does anyone have any specific questions or general questions about this?
No, other than to thank you so much for your work, and it's so nice to meet you. I think
nice
this
to meet
is
you
your
too.
first. Is this your first time here?
Second.
Second. I
Yes.
maybe I missed a meeting that when I was in Zoom, but thank you. But I do want to say I have for David Byers, 100 viewers out there. If you have the opportunity, you're a parent, to sit on a CIC committee at your child's school, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a great way to really understand what teachers and principals and administration are doing and what they're being tasked with it by the DEIC. And I had the privilege of sitting on DEIC for a year, and it truly gives you an insight into the work that's not only laid out, but to see that there are. If you'll pull that the little box, the little matrix that says October, you've got your months on it.
Those are your checkpoints.
Yes, your checkpoints. They actually go in and they open it up and they look at the data they have and they evaluate and they say, yes, it's October and we've met it. And it's a win always when you can check off a month. But I just cannot stress enough for our parents out there and community members that want to get involved. This is a great committee to be involved in. CIC and DEIC do tremendous work. Thank you.
Well, just to look at this document is so impressive and so reflective of the availability of information for anyone who cares to learn about us, the district, and what goes on. It has always amazed me. I can't even imagine the time that y'all put into this. It's really incredible, so thank you.
No, I mean, coming from the outside, it is a tremendous document. There's so much detail, so much information, and I love the fact that it's very specific. Mm-hmm. There is no vagueness at all to it. The checkpoints are identified there, the persons responsible are identified there, and the goals are identified. And I love the fact that it's ongoing monitoring. And so just in meeting the multiple teams that are part of this district, I mean, they do an amazing job, everything from an assistant director to a specialist to human resources to people personnel, everyone's involved in this endeavor. And we're all connected, and that's what you see in this document.
And if I can
tell you now, it's just so nice and easy and attainable. It used to be a massive book, and we would flip through pages and pages.
But I
and
love
pages of
that
stuff.
it's the ongoing monitoring.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think that's a huge piece to it right there. I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to remind the board, we brought this document to you guys back in February, acknowledging that this is a living and breathing document. One of the things that we want to make sure we do is to strategically abandon things that are not working and adopt things that are working. And so we constantly monitor this document to ensure we're focused on the right things and not everything.
Yeah. And that's the key, the right things and not everything. So.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about this?
No, just wanted to say that, it is, I want to echo what you just said about how very detailed it is, and I appreciate that. But because it's so detailed, it takes a tremendous amount of effort and time to go into. So I commend all the departments that put this time, because it can be, when you step back, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but you can definitely tell by the work and when you go through this document that you guys are very meticulous in what to do. So I just want to say thank you for that. And it's really impressive, to be quite honest.
Thank you so much. On behalf of all the departments, we really thank you all for supporting all of the endeavors that our district is currently undergoing, and that you're able to support us in this instructional improvement plan. So thank you.
Mr. Bauer?
Yeah, quick question. I think at the last meeting where we talked about House Bill 3 and Mrs. Grona's favorite goal of very specific percentages that we had to adopt. we had talked a little bit about the local campuses. Are people able to go to their school and talk to the administration and find out what that specific campus, what their goals and objectives would
Yes,
be?
very good point. We will actually be bringing you their campus improvement plans next month, and so you will have an opportunity to see those as well. One of the things that's extremely important that as you create a district improvement plan, use that as a leveraging tool to create a campus improvement plan, because the district can't meet their goals unless campuses are pulling in the same direction, and so that will be the next agenda item for you guys to review.
And those are traditionally located on the campus website too, is that right? There are typically links that, yeah, okay.
Yes. Did you have something, Ms. Williams?
I was just going to ask, and I think this was addressed before, where either we can go on the website and there will be because you'll be doing monitoring, so there will be periodic updates so that we could see how things are progressing. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If we don't have any other questions or comments, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the NAISD District Improvement Plan for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you again. Great
Thank you so much.
presentation, and thank you to all your team for amazing work. Item E, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding resolution indicative of the Board of Trustees' annual review of investment program. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests, we bring to you tonight our yearly resolution that we have to give to you all with the investments that we did for the whole year, and hopefully you all pass a resolution authorizing us to be able to accept that investment report. If there's details that you need, we're here to answer any questions as far as the investment report. You all do get a quarterly. We do give you a quarterly, and it kind of adds up. So this is just the yearly one as of June 30th of 2020.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding this?
I had one about at the very beginning, it talks about the training that you all go
Yes,
through
sir.
every year.
Yes, sir. We have to do 8 hours every 2 years.
Oh, every 2
and
years.
in the consent, we have our training where we can get training from different entities and organizations.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the attached resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosso. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you. Item F, consent. 1, instruction and campus administration. A, School Health Advisory Council annual report. B, School Health Advisory Council member appointments. 2, business services. A, resolution approving sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. B, broker-dealer authorization. C, contract for collection of delinquent taxes. D, waiver of penalties and interest. E, 50,000 purchases. 3, operations. A, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond program design and construction requirements. 4, minutes from September 2020. 5, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent?
Madam President, I need to pull item 1B, School
You-
Health Advisory Member Appointments.
Okay, you want to pull 1B?
Yes,
Okay.
Just B or A and B?
just B.
Just B, thank you.
Mhm. Does anybody else have anything they want to pull?
I'd like to pull 2C, contract for collection of delinquent taxes.
Okay, 2C. Anybody else have anything they want to pull?
While we're at it, 2A, I guess.
2A, resolution approving sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. Okay, anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve consent without 1B, 2A, and 2C?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hosso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, item 1B, SHAC member appointments. Mr. Byer.
Yes, I wanted to first thank all the people that have volunteered to be on SHAC and also the new members that are joining SHAC. I wanted to point out that one of the people that I appointed or asked to join the board, his name is spelled wrong, or he actually has the wrong name in it. It's not Roger Crow, it's Robert Crow. So if we could make that change, that would be helpful.
Okay.
That was it.
And that was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get that, Rachel?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to comment too that I'm very appreciative that we don't disclose the children's names that are on this. I mean, I'm sure there's FERPA and everything, but I know in the past we had some outside people that were harassing our children, so I very much appreciate that our children are being taken care of, because I do think that involvement of our students in this committee is extremely important. So thank you to the 50 people on the big committee and to all the students on the KSHAC. So thank you.
Okay. Item 2A, Tony.
Thank you. It's on page 143 where we list the resolution approving independent sources of instruction related to investment responsibilities. I just have a question. So down there at the bottom on section 1, it lists the various sources of instruction, and I think this may be correct, but I'm just checking. So like one of them is Southwest Securities, and I don't know if that, might be stricken. Is that the same Southwest Securities that's now rolled into Hilltop?
It is.
Okay. But
even though this October meeting is normally where we just do all the investment program, if you would prefer to wait and have us bring this back to you in November with that one stricken, we'll be happy to. It does not have to be adopted tonight.
no, I mean, we can adopt it. I just wanted to make sure that, for whatever record purposes, that's, I guess, just now.
We will not be hiring Southwest Securities to do our investment training.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Was that it?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
it.
All right. 2C, Ms. Huey.
Before I even knew this was on the agenda tonight, I had been wanting to ask about the collection of delinquent taxes. I don't know if that would be Dan or
Yes,
Cliff or Lydia or whoever.
Yes, ma'am.
With the changes in collection issues this year, between landlords not getting rent because of, no evictions, between homeowners losing their jobs or their income sources, how is that going to impact property tax collection this year? I mean, it just seems it's going to be a massive issue.
Well, I have factored in a slight dip in collection percentage, but I can tell you that for the tax year, which ends in September, when we came to you with the final budget amendment, we actually brought down the estimated revenue for property taxes due to lower collections. After we did that, property tax collections in June, July, and August skyrocketed to the point where when we reached the end of the tax year, September 30, we were within 0.1% of what I would call a normal collection rate.
Oh, wow.
How did that happen? Oh, my gosh. I mean, that's great.
I'm not going to question it.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I just worried about the impact on our community, and I don't want anyone. I know it's the law. I'm not saying that, but I don't know what kind of grace that there's even possible.
Yes.
Not.
Yeah. So.
It's the law. It's the state. Yeah. Okay. And then kudos to our company that has done a fantastic job for us for all these years. So they've been amazing.
Thank you for sticking around, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for new board members, we don't pay them nothing. We don't give them no money.
Okay.
They're a good job.
So do I have a motion to approve 1B, 2A, and 2C?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Yes, thank you, Cliff and Lily, for being here. Item 9, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. That's been provided to you. B, awarded bid report. That's been provided to you. Number 10, matters from the floor. I've already read that, but I wonder if I need to read it again.
I think we have.
Hey, Chief, do we still have people out there that want to speak? Okay.
Let me get my clock up. Just give me just a
Well,
second.
he said he thought there were 2.
Well, there's 3 on our list. There's 3 left on our
There's
list.
one.
There's 3 left. There should be.
Kat Rourke, Tom Cummins, and Cody
Holder?
Holder.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't think he's going to get to speak again. Oh, I'm
you're
so sorry.
Cody.
Forgive my poor penmanship.
Well, come on.
Just wanted to make sure. Cody, you have 3 minutes, and you were here. Never mind. State your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Cody Holder. I live at 9431 Victory Road, San Antonio, Texas, 78254. It's a pleasure to be here to speak with you for multiple reasons. One, my wife is an educator, and I used to be an educator. So thank you for all you do for the teachers and the students and your faculty in Northeast ISD. It's really important to me. Second, I have a degree in political science. I just like public forums. So it's something that I enjoy listening to, and I think that's one of the mainstays of this country, and it's a pleasure to be here to speak with you. My job, I actually work for Microsoft. I'm an education specialist, and I came here tonight to talk to you, not sell you anything, but because you're already our customers, but offer you freebies. Everybody likes free. It's the taxpayer's favorite price and typically the school board's favorite price. So what I offer is, may I remove this?
Yes,
I
you
apologize.
may.
Thank you so much. What my team offers is free training and free support on Microsoft solutions. We have in our software, which you already have access to, the ability to help non-traditional learners, such as students with dyslexia, ESS, which we've heard about tonight, ESL, ELL. It's all built right into your Microsoft software. And as a former educator, coming from a classroom, I was a music teacher and a girls' athletics coach, so it's not like I had a whole lot on my plate. However, having no technology in the classroom, I can tell you what it's like when you get your hands on that technology. For a student to understand the language real fast by clicking a button, and they get it. It's no students left behind just because they speak a different language. They can still learn at the same pace, right? Same thing with your traditional learners. We have the ability for your kinesthetic, auditory, and visual learners with our software combined with most hardware that's accessible these days to learn right off the bat. And most students are 2 of those 3 traditional learning styles. So you combine all of that stuff into one free training session or as many as you're interested in, we're here to support. Of course, if y'all do need anything, we're here to help you out, but y'all have plenty of Microsoft support, and we're the boots on the ground team. So we just want to offer the free training and the free support that we can offer you. I would not going to give my phone number on the record just for safety, but I'm happy to.
If you want to give it to her, the lady right there.
Absolutely happy
or
to.
Dan.
Did you see all the hands go up?
Yes.
I think you wanted to.
I'm more than happy to meet, speak, come, talk, go to a school, whatever you need to. And additionally, I'm sure y'all have been seeing the NBA Finals go on. The Together mode that the NBA Finals have put on, that is powered by Microsoft Teams, which is, I've heard y'all talk about people being able to view this online.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Opens Meeting Acts compliant, which is probably one of the most important things that we offer for people to be able to, learn remotely and see what's going on in a taxpayer-funded based system like this. So thank you for the time, and I'll be sure I connect with other people who raise their hand.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so is Tom Cummins out there?
But Kat Rourke is actually first if she's still here.
Just let Tom come in. Yes.
Can Ms. Rourke speak in front of me? 'Cause that was the order that we had.
Sure, we didn't know if she was here. We were told there were
thank
only,
you.
okay,
Can we fill in these seats?
sure,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, I'm Kathleen Rourke, and I'm representing Northeast AFT 10615, Parent Vital 78213. Northeast AFT is currently conducting a short survey concerning the working conditions as we reopen the schools. There were a few areas we were particularly interested in. First, we were concerned with safety. Is there enough personal protective equipment was one of our questions. So far, 55% have said yes, and 45% have said no. That's a large number of no's. Is social distancing being followed at each campus? 66% say yes, but 34% say no. Are students and adults wearing masks at all times except when eating? Again, 66% said yes, and 34% said no. Second, we looked at the teaching situation. We asked teachers if their virtual teaching has been successful while monitoring other students. Fully 74% said yes, and 26% said no. When the question was asked if the teacher had confidence that he or she will do well teaching virtually while simultaneously teaching face-to-face, fully 87% of the teachers said no, and only 12% said yes. Last, we asked teachers if they have sufficient enough time to do their job within the teacher workday. Only 22% said yes, while 72% said no. We are still collecting survey submissions as well as speaking with teachers in a random survey. More importantly, we are collecting a large number of written comments, which we will share with you in the future. What those comments say so far, that many teachers are very frustrated and very overwhelmed, and it's only mid-October. The comments also tell us that hybrid teaching is an almost impossible task to do justice to both virtual students and face-to-face students at the same time. Also, the paperwork load in preparation to teach has become unbearable. Many teachers are struggling to put everything online. Teachers need administrative support to be effective and to lessen their burdens. But as the comments tell us, the administration keeps adding more tasks and more forms to fill out and more videos to watch. We will provide you with a copy of the survey and comments when it's complete, but in the meantime, please address the teaching conditions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tom Cummins?
Almost attacked me.
New mic.
Yes. It's a new gate. I don't know quite what to do with it, like
That's
the cow.
okay.
My name is Tom Cummins. I'm representing Northeast AFT. Not very well at the moment, but I will improve, I assure you. Yes, we did collect a lot of comments. We're still collecting them. We're also doing telephone interviews, Zoom interviews, and so on. I'm going to read you a lot of these comments having to do with the question that has to do with I have sufficient time to do my job within the teacher workday. And I'm not cherry picking these. I'm reading what the average answer is. We have a lot of these comments, and those who are doing well usually don't put that down. But we have a ton that have a negative view at the moment. I'd like to read a few of them. Can you do the job within the time? Absolutely not. I work 4 to 5 hours at home each night, updating grades, emailing parents, and creating lessons that can be done virtually and or in person. Another, absolutely not. Even working all weekends cannot truly get ahead. Administration keeps adding more things to do, more forms to fill out, more videos to watch for, training. By the end of the day, my eyes are sore, constantly working at home in the evenings and weekends. Every day I have a meeting, which means it takes away from tutoring or lesson planning or grading, responding to parent contact. After school, I have tutoring, and so many kids are failing, I feel overwhelmed. There isn't enough time to do anything. here's one that's positive. For the most part, I do. There have been temporary demands with more prep needed to teach both in person and virtually. But things should calm down when I am teaching one or the other. And so the hybrid is really a problem. 10 to 12-hour school days, another 15 to 16 hours on the weekend just to keep my nose above water. I absolutely don't have enough time during the day. I spend every evening from after I cook supper from 7 to about 11:30 preparing just to be able to teach the next day on the weekends. I am trying to grade stuff in Google Classroom, which is a nightmare in and of itself. And that's not even adding the additional component of having to do in-person teaching and virtual teaching simultaneously. That's just me trying to teach virtually. I'm a special education teacher and have to modify assignments, and I usually complete it on the weekends because the general education teachers are struggling to get the assignments completed. I am absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of work this school year. I am barely sleeping. I am working 13 to 14 hours a day and 6 to 8 hours each day on the weekend. I cannot take care of my family and my personal needs. I have melted down and cried over 10 times so far. I am emotionally and physically exhausted, and I'm asked to do more every week.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Well, thank you very much, and we will get this report to you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, item 11, discussion and possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a, excuse me. I'm sorry. You had, Mr. Osborne, you had your time when we called you at the agenda item. So you've already had your 3 minutes to speak. Discussion and possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for a report from the administration. Does anyone wish to have something placed on a future agenda?
I do.
Okay.
I would like to, probably at the beginning of the year, sometime January, February, early next year, after the new SHAC members are able to get in, and I know that they had to shut down over the course of the last several months, and they had committees that were not able to meet or really make any progress. And now that we're kind of reinvesting in that and getting new members, I'd like to maybe at the beginning of the year get a report that talks about what their goals are for the next year and what they're going to work on, and just kind of give us an update as to where they are and what they're doing. So I think specifically it would be more just, what are the committees and what are those committee goals now that they have the new members and where they're headed for the next year after that.
Okay, so Mr. Byer, do you want it in a written report, or is that something that you want brought to the board?
I think it would be nice to have a short presentation to the board.
Okay.
Just so everybody can kind of see what's going on and what they're working on.
All right, Dr. Newman gave me the thumbs up.
Yeah.
So in January or February,
sometime
we will
beginning of
bring you a presentation, really, not a report, but more of a
Correct.
presentation.
Correct.
All right. You got that, Dr. Newman? You got that, Peggy? Okay.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, so you made a motion to do that?
Move for the SHAC to give us a presentation January, February of 2021.
Okay, and I heard Mr. Hasso second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to a future agenda? Seeing none, adjournment, item 12, and the time is 10 o'clock. Thank you all for being here on such a long night. Appreciate all y'all do.